national cohesion. Mr. Speaker, we have a whole commission that watches some of these things happen, and we have not had anybody take this commission to task. Maybe this committee should begin to do that as well. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to suggest that we don't broaden it so much. We pick an area, and it will tell us the whole story. If we make it look like the whole government is going to be listed as to who is who and what they carry, it may take us too long. We won't solve the problem quickly. But if we pick a particular specific areas and make those sample enough to show us that inequalities have been there, it'll be faster, and we'll be able then to deal with this matter. But I do support and ask that as long as it avoids profiling in a very negative sense, Speaker, let us go ahead and do it. Maybe, but I still persist that the commission that should really have had an impact on the way that the balancing happens in the country. Thank you, Speaker.
Senator Chila yako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to join my colleagues in congratulating Senator Malala for raising this very important issue. Mr. Speaker, those who have walked the journey of reform know that we have been looking at ways and means of having one Kenya that recognizes diversity and plurality of origin, belief, and perhaps color. Mr. Speaker, I know that the answer is almost out there, that the committee will find out that there isn't even distribution of opportunities. What I want the committee to look at, more importantly, is how to solve this problem. The law, the constitution, and other documents are very clear as to what we should have in this country. We are likely to find statistics indicating, imbalance in terms of availing opportunity to our people. But what solution are we going to get? So this committee, which has been given a very heavy responsibility, should look at what kind of solution that would be sustainable and would work for this nation, and what kind of sanctions that should be put in place for those who violate this very sacred fabric of our nation. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, in this statement, there isn't clear mention of inclusion of gender. We are talking about ethnic and regional balance. It is important also to look at gender, because in our gender lies a lot of potential that is being overlooked, that is being overtaken and being ignored, yet that is where the future lies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Marianne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to also add my voice on this important statement. And I want to say that it's a very timely statement. And on top of supporting it to move to the next level, the committee should also task the Ministry of Public Service to see how much they've been doing on this. It's their role to ensure that there is equality in every sector. And therefore, we would wish to know what they've been doing to help this country address these matters of ethnic balances in all sectors and in all departments and in all ministries. And therefore, support, and I want to congratulate Senator Malala for thinking of this important statement.
Senator Wamboyanok. I thank you, the Speaker, for this opportunity to also join my colleagues in congratulating Senator Malala for bringing up this very bold statement, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from the outset, I would want to say that the committee to which this statement will be committed should also look into what is happening in our counties. Very few of our counties, if any, are observing the constitutional requirement that 30% of staff in the counties should come from outside the region where the counties operate from. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, the committee that will be dealing with this matter, I know that when the issues start coming up, there will be so much talk from different quarters, and especially from communities that maybe are overrepresented in the civil service. Talking about profiling of ethnic profiling. The Speaker, let the committee have the courage to confront the facts as they are and bring the results of the investigations into this house for deliberation. Mr. Speaker, it is very sad that as you speak today, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission is more or less moribund. The last time I checked, the Commission's term of office had expired. The term of office of the CEO had also expired, and there was an ongoing court case on the procedure to follow in constituting the Commission. So, the Speaker, even as the committee looks into this matter, they should also help the National Cohesion to be back on its feet and see what legislative interventions are needed to make it more than just a toothless dog. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Melgo Alice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I also rise to support Senator Malala on this statement. And I think this is a timely statement, more particularly because of the fact that they have been having challenges in this country. And we have seen, particularly with the handshake, the fact that peace is already there. And I'm sure if there was balancing in all institutions, we'd have even better ways of performing jobs. Mr. Speaker, I think this committee that will deal with this should look into this particular matter in terms of how we can be able to put in place some law, or in this case, a legal way to ensure that once we put that one in place, all institutions will be required to adhere to the issue of balancing. In terms of balancing of different ethnic people, Mr. Speaker, this one would even be able to create efficiencies. We've realized that in most cases, most institutions in this country normally have people of the same ethnic groups to the extent that business is almost even being conducted in the local dialect. Mr. Speaker, sir, that is the result of the inefficiencies that we are seeing in this country, and even that one breeds a lot of corruption. I think once this one here is done through that particular committee, we would be able to aid the committee to ensure that this one be cascaded to the counties so that we even have cross-county even transfers so that we can exchange staff, and therefore we are able to exchange ideas. And I think by so doing, that then will enable our country even to go higher in terms of performance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Musuruve.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this statement from Senator Kakamega County. And I want to say that Senator Malala has come up with a very commendable statement that needs to be investigated and investigated thoroughly, Mr. Speaker, because when we look at even the Constitution is really keen about issues of affirmative action. But Mr. Speaker, you'll find even communities that seem to be large are now seemingly being marginalized in terms of positions when you look at the public service. So there's need to really for the committee to do an audit and really find out in terms of ethnic balancing when it comes to jobs, when it comes to positions, so that every community is represented and represented effectively. And Mr. Speaker, even as you talk about representation of communities, they need to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that persons with disabilities are also represented effectively, because they are marginalized, yes, but when it comes to even appointments, you'll find that some of them have papers, but they are actually left out there in the cold. So there's need for this committee to really interrogate and see how to sort out this issue for the purpose of integration, for the purpose of national integration, and for the purpose of ensuring that all Kenyans are also benefiting from the national cake. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Bishiro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank you very much for allowing me to contribute to this, and I would like to congratulate Senator Malala for this really good statement. Mr. Speaker, the issue of inclusivity and equal opportunities for our people, I'm sure is what he's aiming at, so that then we have a shared prosperity. And Mr. Speaker, I hope that the committee will go beyond just ethnic and regional to look at other measures of inclusivity with regards to perhaps even to see, how many women actually are there, what about people with disabilities, because as much as we're looking at regional balance and ethnic composition of our workforce, we also would like to see the other aspects of inclusivity and equality and equal opportunity as pertains to women, as pertains to the youth, and as pertains to people with disabilities as well. So I hope that the committee will also include those things, but it's very easy to determine just from the data that they will have got. Mr. Speaker, the issue of inclusivity also, if we step back a little, is also about education. Again, we could argue that perhaps it's not meritology that is going to determine where you get placed in our public service. Perhaps we could also look at, is our education system inclusive enough then to ensure that upstream to the job market we have an inclusive all-round representation of everybody in our country, as opposed to just having maybe one ethnic group or one regional group or perhaps one gender that is represented in our workforce. So again, the issue of education and inclusive education is also one, especially for us who come from parts of the country where we still see a lot of disparities as regards education, that we would like to see that hopefully the committee recommendation will also go back to give some recommendations as to what are some of the factors perhaps that are causing this. Mr. Speaker, looking at the issues around what this statement is speaking to, as you know, we have had issues around ethnic antagonism and competition. Recently, we are seeing on television people that have been hauled before the courts that bear perhaps the same names or the same regional backgrounds, and perhaps that could be some of the reasons why these questions are being asked. But at the same time, what we're trying to, I hope that with this we look more beyond the ethnic to look at other perspectives that include women, youth, and people with disabilities. I support and I congratulate Senator Malala.
Senator James Orengo.
Speaker, just briefly in support of this request for statement, I fully support it and commend the Deputy Minority Leader and Senator from Kakamega. But one of the things than the issue of balance in terms of regions and numbers, there's a balance, a portfolio balance that is very important. It's no good giving people from a certain area certain positions, which may be mere sinecures, and you're saying regions like the coast, we have given you certain positions which you should appreciate. What sometimes is more important are that there are some very key positions in government, which for some reason, in fact, if you look at it from the time of independence, there are some key areas in the public service that tend to go to particular communities. And this is a matter that should not be considered to be an idle comment. People will feel more inclusive. I mean, they'll feel they're included in terms of being part and parcel of the leadership of the nation, depending on not only on the number of positions that are distributed equitably, on the terms of competence and integrity, but also in terms of the portfolio balance, so that it's not just numbers, but it's also the status of those positions. I can see from the distinguished member who just spoken, the issue of women. I think that is also very important. There are countries which are taking the lead, like in South Africa, they are saying in the public service, including cabinet, you can almost have equal numbers of both gender, and that is the way to go. But beyond that, I would want to see a situation where every position in the public service could be given to anybody irrespective of where that person comes from. And Mr. Speaker, if I started enumerating, if you start from a position like the governor of central bank, and determine, since in the last 50 years, where have the governor of the central bank come from? You take a position like in the security sector and try to determine where those people have come from. Then you begin to see how discriminatory the system is, instead of just thinking about numbers. So this is a very important question, a very important request, and I look forward to seeing it. I remember there was one time when Honorable Sifuna did ask such a question. It brought a lot of furor, but what turned out was the truth. And these are the kind of signals we should be looking at in advance to determine whether the country is going in the right direction or not. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I see a lot of interest, and we have many other statements that we need to speak to. So I'll just give 2 minutes to those who I'll invite. Senator Kabaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me these 2 minutes. I support this statement by the Senator for Kakamega, my friend. I wish to state that the Constitution is very clear in Article 27 on equality and freedom from discrimination. And indeed, like Senator Fosiaya has stated, having given some historical genesis of inequalities in the government positions, I wish to state very clear that indeed, even without this statement being issued, it is in black and white. We do know very clear that there is a lot of disparity. And we know these key government positions go to which tribes. So I would say that the problem in this state is the tribes. And it's not a question of academics, because there are people, all the tribes, basically majority of the tribes in this country, they are people who are well schooled, but still you find that they are being discriminated. They are not given. And also, we have a problem even with the national, with the parliament, both the National Assembly and even the Senate. You will find that some people may not see during the vetting process, may not go through, simply because they come from a certain tribe. I would even come down and state where my tribe, the Kamba. Kambas, like we've been told here, they have been given certain position since independence, especially the ones in the military and police. Why are they given? Not because of the academics, but they are given because they are very honest. You know? But now we are saying, it's not, you love position. We are saying that Kambas are learned.
Senator, be careful as you head in that direction, because you may be asked to substantiate how honest they are.
I will. I would.
Keep within the...
I would. In 1982, when Kenya was, when there was a coup d'etat in this country, it took General Mulinge, a Kamba, to save the president then Moi. That is because of honesty. If it was selfish, this country would have taken a different direction. I'm a student of history, but I don't want to go to that. So what I'm saying is that indeed we need to have a very equal leveled kind of governance where all the tribes feel indeed they belong to this country. I support. Thank you.
Senator Wako Naomi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important statement by Senator Malala. This statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, concerns all of us. Mr. Speaker, there is a lot of noise on that corner. And taking,
let's consult in low tones.
yes, let them
That's,
consult.
maybe,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. This is very important statement to each one of us. The issue of equality is something that has caused most of the challenges that we have in our country today. There are people who are not satisfied. There are people who have been marginalized. There are people who have never tested, you know, the best part and the best portion of the resources that we have. And because of that, Mr. Speaker, sir, I support this statement, and I believe it will come to our committee of national cohesion. We will give it, my committee of national cohesion, and we will give it all the attention it deserves and give all the responses that the honorable members are requesting for. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Boy Isajuma.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kunipa fursa hii. Kwanza nataka kumshukuru Senator wa Kakamega, Senator Malala, kuleta hii hoja ndani ya hii Senate.
Let's consult in low tones, honorable members.
Mheshimiwa Spika, kama unavyojua katika nchi yetu hii ya Kenya, mara nyingi sana katika uteuzi wa hizi kazi huwa zina shida sana. Na kusema la kweli, Mheshimiwa Malala, hii statement umeleta bunge, umeleta Senate siku ya leo, itakapojadiliwa na hii kamiti itatoa mambo mengi sana. Manake umesema wataka kujua ni mabalozi wangapi, ma-MD wangapi, madirector wangapi, tuweze kujua na tujue kwamba haki inatendeka kweli. Mheshimiwa Spika, tuseme kwa ubaya kwamba kuna ubaguzi au kuna nini. Kama unavyojua sisi Kenya ni watu wa moja, ni nchi moja, tunapendana. Lakini wakati wa ugawavi wa hizi nafasi za kazi, utashangaa Mheshimiwa Spika, wala sita kusema mengi. Lakini hii tume ambayo utapendekeza ichunguze hili jambo, itatoa ukweli na tutajua ni nani na watu gani waliopewa nafasi hii. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, namuunga mkono statement ya Mheshimiwa Malala. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Masinza Naomi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the statement with my Senator Malala, Senator of Kakamega. Mr. Speaker, not many people can get the courage of bringing such a statement, especially to be discussed in such a house, but I congratulate Senator Malala. Mr. Speaker, when you look at our constitution, we all embrace constitution and we embrace the opportunities that have been given in the constitution. But when you add the distribution of opportunities, especially high cut-up opportunities in the government, you will be ashamed, even if the list will come the way we are requesting for it, you will be ashamed to get that the same people from maybe the one region or community are the ones that get lucrative areas, they are the ones that are employed. What is the need of us Kenyans then educating our children? What is the need of us investing in our children and the communities? If at all, just lucrative areas, lucrative good opportunities are given to the same people from all, it is given in a biased way. Mr. Speaker, sir, you look at the embassies, you look at the state agencies, people from the same community, and we are not ashamed to say that these people need to change the culture. This culture is a heartbreaking culture, especially in Kenya here. And this one is also trickling down even to the county government. And we are saying that when this list comes, I will wish to be a friend of the committee so that I can also bear my contribution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Olekina Ledamo.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you. I rise to give my few unorthodox views on this statement. This is a statement that has come in a very sensitive time in this country, a time when our own children, seldom do they know whether they are Maasais, Kikuyu, or Kalenjin. I long for the time, Mr. Speaker, sir, when we can look at ourselves as one nation, one country as Kenyans. But having said that, I'm also alive to the fact that the issue of the ethnicity is more inclined to the issue of resources getting to the people. So although I support my colleague, Senator Malala, this is a very dangerous statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, in my view. And I hope that we can look at ourselves as Kenyans. Because now if I ask my 7-year-old boy the difference between a Maasai and a Kalenjin, he doesn't know, and he wouldn't give a hoot in hell what the difference is. So I think it is time that we reward merit, but not look at people in terms of where they come from which ethnic group they come from. Some of us who are the minority, if we have to go there, I think the issue is this, and this is not only a problem, Mr. Speaker, sir, in Kenya, but all of Africa and the world, where people are not able to manage the issue of diversity in terms of ethnicity. So I think as this committee would be looking at this, some of these things which are being requested by my colleagues are very dangerous. List the number of government ministries, embassies, state agencies, department, and parastatal as currently constituted in Kenya. And then secondly, go to and tell us which ethnic group they come from. When they are not Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have to be very careful on how we proceed in terms of bringing affirmative action of the issue of inclusivity. So as I urge the committee looking at this, the first thing which should be the one which is leading them in terms of getting facts so that we can advance affirmative action is by saying, who are these Kenyans and what part of Kenya do they come from? So that at least the 47 county governments that we have feel represented in the big national cake. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Ongeri Samson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our Constitution, while acknowledging the Almighty God of all creation as the supreme being of this world, also recognizes the aspirations of all Kenyans for a government based on the essential values of human rights, equality, freedom, democracy, social justice, and the rule of law. And indeed, one of the reasons why this commission was set up is to be able to ensure there is clear balance in terms of opportunities. There is equality in everything that we do, whether in the educational institutions, whether in the social areas, whether in government positions, everywhere else, that we must impart values that our children and the generations to come will espouse so that they are able to live in a country that is free from all other encumbrances. And there's nothing so bad as discrimination. And this is what this committee is supposed to do, and this is what this statement is seeking. Are we living true to the fidelity of our Constitution of equality? For now, I'll let my comments rest there. I'll make more comments when the statement is soon. Thank you.
Finally, Senator Kilonzo Mutula Jr.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with Senator Olekina that this statement is necessary, but the statement is very dangerous. The fact is, I'm not sure whether Kenya is prepared to deal with the truth of what Senator Malala is asking. And the truth is, Mr. Speaker, just like in the book of John 8:26, the majority of public service jobs has centered around tribes of people who have occupied the presidency. So I'm not sure, once that is done, what we are supposed to do about it, because it's a fact, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, as we interrogate this issue through whatever committee, Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure whether the information will be given, but when it is given, Mr. Speaker, there will be gnashing of teeth, like in the book of Revelation. Because jobs in Kenya are given in a principle called technical know-who and not merit. Therefore, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chilayako, what is your intervention?
Now, Mr. Speaker, I hate to interrupt my whip. He might de-whip me, but my whip and Senator Oladama said that what we are seeking is very dangerous. Now, Mr. Speaker, I am very concerned about the security of members, including myself. And would I be in order to request Senator Mutula to let us know what kind of danger is lacking about the information that we are seeking so that we can take safety measures, Mr. Speaker?
is not danger to the extent that you need to wear a helmet or you need to wear a bodyguard, but, Mr. Speaker, the information is dangerous to the extent that the people who are employed or the tribes who occupy these positions, once you know, do you remove them from both those positions and give others? Are we going to condemn people who are in office because of their tribe? It's a question. It's a question in the mind. I'm just asking. The information will be given. Information is possibly known. But what will you do with it once the information is here? You find people from the same tribe, number 1 to 20. Are you going to remove them from office? That's the question. Who are you going to refer this matter to? Are you going to affect the principles of employment and other things? So I'm just saying that the information is possibly readily available. You don't even need a week. Maybe you need 3 days. And this information will be here. The fundamental question is, how will Kenya deal with the fact that jobs have been given to the same people, same tribes since independence? That is the danger. Thank you.
Okay, honorable senators, I think the committee that will deal with that, as intelligent people, they will know what information to provide to this House. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from Getuini Secondary School, Moranga County. In our ancient tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them. And on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. That's it. Another communication. Senator Kangata. Honorable order members, I would also like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and lecturers of University of Nairobi, Nairobi County. In our tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Honorable Senators, I have another communication. On the demise of the late Honorable Ken Okoth, MP member of National Assembly for Kibra constituency. Honorable Senators, on the evening of Friday, 26 July 2019, the country received with great sorrow the sad news of the demise of member of National Assembly Kibra constituency, the late Honorable Ken Okoth. Honorable Senators, the late Honorable Ken Okoth was born in Kibra, Kisumu Ndogo, Nairobi County in 1978. He attended Olympic Primary School and thereafter proceeded to Starehe Boys Center, where he sat for his KCEC examination in 1995. Between 1997 and 2001, Honorable Okoth attended St. Lawrence University, Compton, New York, USA, where he graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in German and European Studies. He later attended Georgetown University, Washington, D.C., USA for his Masters of Arts in Germany and European Studies between 2002 and 2005. In the late Honorable Okoth made his debut in national politics in the run-up to the 2013 general election when he successfully vied for the Kibra constituency, where he served from 2013 to 2017. He was subsequently re-elected in 2017 general election. He was a vibrant member of the National Assembly who served actively and diligently in the 11th Parliament 2013-17. He was an active member of the Departmental Committee on Education, Research and Technology, where his contribution and participation was commendable. In current Parliament, he served as a member of the Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee and the Procedure and House Rights Committee. He also served as one of the founders and chairpersons of the Parliamentary Caucus on Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Honorable Senators, before joining the National Assembly, in 2013, the late Honorable Okoth started his career as a resident director in 2001 at St. Lawrence University, Canton, New York, USA. Between 2003 and 2004, he served as a history instructor at the Friends School of Baltimore. He served as a lecturer of African Studies at Georgetown University School of Foreign Services between 2005 and 2008. He also served as executive director for the Children of Kibra Foundation, Washington, D.C., USA, and Nairobi between 2007 and 2012, and as a resident director at the University of Dar es Salaam Study Center. Honorable Senators, the late Honorable Okoth was a firm leader who never shied away from defending the rights of his constituents and the people of Kenya in general. In Parliament, he championed for three things, among many others, and would always quote them: uchumi bora, elimu kwanza, na mazingara bora. He also was instrumental in the passage of the Prevention of Torture Act of 2017 and the National Coroner's Service Act 2017. Honorable Senators, his passing marks a dark moment not only for his family, the 12th Parliament and resident of Kibra constituency, but for the country at large. Kenya has lost a candid, resolute, humble, gentle, pleasant, and amiable legislator who endeavored to give everything for what he believed in with great courage, tenacity, and humility. Honorable Senators, on behalf of the Senate and indeed on my own behalf, I wish to take this opportunity to condole with the family, friends, and constituents of the late brother Honorable Ken Okoth for the loss of this great legislator. In tribute to our departed colleague, I request that we all stand to observe a minute of silence. I thank you. I thank you. Honorable Senators, I have another communication to make on the demise of the late Honorable Dr. Joyce Laboso, EGH, Governor of Bomet County. Honorable Senators, as you are aware, today is another sad day for the country and the people of Bomet County in particular, following the heartbreaking loss of Governor Dr. Joyce Laboso, who passed away while undergoing treatment yesterday, 29th July 2019. Honorable Senators, the late governor was born on 25th November 1960 and attended Kaplong and Molo Primary School before joining Kaplong Girls School and Kenya High School. A love of multiculturalism. Dr. Laboso studied French, literature, and education at Kenyatta University before proceeding to St. Paul's Valery University in France for postgraduate diploma in teaching of French. She obtained her master's in teaching of English as a foreign language from the University of Reading in the United Kingdom and was awarded a PhD in gender and language education at the University of Hull, United Kingdom. Honorable Senators, the late governor began her remarkable career by teaching at Kipsigis Girls High School before joining Egerton University as a lecturer, rising to the position of Assistant Dean of Students. She also lectured at for 4 years at Faro House Foundation Center in Hull, United Kingdom, before rejoining Egerton University as the coordinator of Communications, Media Library, and Information Studies Program. Honorable Senators, the late Governor Laboso joined elective politics in 2008 following the passing on of her sister, the Honorable Lona Laboso. She vied for the Soti constituency seat, which she won in a by-election on 25th September 2008. Governor Laboso's parliamentary career was highlighted by one historical accolade after another. To highlight a few, she was appointed to serve in the National Assembly's House Business Committee in her first term and served in the Departmental Committee on Education, Research, and Technology. She was also an active member of the Kenya Women Parliamentary Association, KEWAPA. The people of Soti constituency showed confidence in her leadership and development track record by re-electing her back to Parliament in March 2013. Later in 2017, Dr. Laboso made history by becoming the first woman deputy speaker in the history of the Parliament of Kenya. You can sit down. Honorable Senators, the late Joyce Laboso was elected co-president of the African Caribbean European Union Joint Parliamentary Assembly, ICPU, from 2012 to 2013, taking leadership of parliaments representing nearly 100 countries from 4 regions of the world. Her services as the ICPU earned her respect and honor in interparliamentary diplomacy. Honorable Senators, as a member for Soti constituency, the late Honorable Laboso had prioritized the development of roads, education, water, electricity, and had championed women issues. It is on this pedestal that the people of Bomet County encouraged her to vie for the position of person. On behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I wish to take this opportunity to condole with the family and friends of Governor Dr. Joyce Laboso, EGH, in tribute and honor to our departed compatriot.
And Ken was a very, very accomplished human being, an all-round human being, a person who loved his friends, his family, his country, his constituents, Mr. Speaker, with all his heart. In Ken, what you saw is what you got, because he didn't have different personalities. He was just a straightforward person. And Ken was very friendly. We were among a group of young legislators elected together to 11 Parliament, and he served in the National Assembly as we served here in the Senate. And he was a person I can confidently say who was ready to work with people across the political divide. And one thing that surprised me, and you were there, Mr. Speaker, when we went to France and when we met him, and how he dealt with the situation with a lot of grace, with a smile, with commitment, with passion for his people, despite the fact that he was going through a very difficult time. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to convey my heartfelt condolences from myself, my family, the people of Elgeyo Marakwet County, to the friends, to the family, friends, and constituents, or the people of Kibra, for the loss of such a great and accomplished gentleman. Mr. Speaker, there are things that we have control of as human beings, and there are those that we don't. And so for those we have no control, including the obvious fact that we will leave this world via death, is that, Mr. Speaker, what we can only say is that Ken's inspiring life lives among us. Mr. Speaker, I also want to convey my condolences to the family of Governor Joyce Laboso. Governor Laboso was also my personal friend. And I got to know her before we passed the 2010 Constitution, when she engaged me, Mr. Speaker, to do civic education in Soti constituency. At that point in time, she was a member of Parliament, and I was a law lecturer at Catholic University and Moi University. And we worked so closely, Mr. Speaker, with her. And luckily, when I came to Parliament, we were in the same political party. We served together with Dr. Joyce Laboso. And I was among the people who stood by her when she went for the position of governor. And Mr. Speaker, it was a combination of wisdom, intelligence, and also, Mr. Speaker, tenacity and fortitude in the person of Dr. Joyce Laboso. So intelligent that she got 2 degrees in UK, but when you went to Bomet or when you interacted with Joyce, she never loaded great degrees on you or achievements on you. I read a newspaper article that was saying she became a trailblazer by accident because she inherited the seat from her sister. In fact, I was reflecting that Joyce has only been in politics and public, that's to say, public life for only, Mr. Speaker, a short 11 years. But if you look through, it's about 10 years. And if you look through her history, Mr. Speaker, as a member of Parliament, as the Deputy Speaker, as a first Governor Oman, together with the Governor of Kitui and the one of Kirinyaga, Mr. Speaker, we thank God for the person we knew. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say pole to the people of Bomet. Just to conclude, there is a big debate. I know this afternoon we are going to deal with a bill on cancer prevention and treatment. And Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of theories and conversation about what exactly we should do to avoid cancer or we should do to treat cancer. Mr. Speaker, those of us who are laymen in the sense of being doctors sometimes even get confused as to exactly what is being, what advice should be taken. And Mr. Speaker, I think it's important that we deal as a nation, we try to eliminate as much as possible the things that could lead to this disease, whether it's in terms of the safety of our food, whether in terms of the safety of our environment, Mr. Speaker. It's unfortunate that many people think treating diseases, including cancer, or preventing or avoiding diseases, including cancer, is a function of only Ministry of Health, which is unfortunate. As a nation, as it just concluded the Speaker, we should go holistic approach. The conversation about well-being and health of the nation should not be focusing on what Ministry of Health is doing or Department of Health is doing. We should have this holistic approach about how is our environment, how is the food we are eating, what about Department of Physical Exercise, and so forth, so that then ultimately we achieve better health as a nation, not just focusing on treatment itself, which is extremely expensive and costly to the families. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, because everybody wants to say something, I just want to say poleni to the people of Bomet, poleni to the people of Kibra. We'll continue praying for you, and we'll do everything possible in our capacity as leaders to continue making this country a better place to live in. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator James Orengo, Leader of Minority.
Mr. Speaker, let me also join you in the messages of condolence and, saying pole to the families of these two great leaders we have lost. Ken Okoth, to begin with, was a young, vibrant parliamentarian. He was an all-rounder in many ways, because I have seen very few members of parliament who had the capacity like Ken Okoth, who is a good legislator. At the same time, he, I think, came from the background of somebody like President Obama, who knew how to work with the community, doing community work. And thirdly, he was extremely eloquent. He's one of the legislators whom I think never shied away from appearing before the media, going on talk shows, answering questions, not only in his areas of specialty, but on any matter of public interest, you find Ken Okoth ready and set to engage with the media and the public. And remember, Mr. Speaker, that Ken Okoth came to not an easy constituency, because it had been led by or represented by Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, and taking over from a person of that stature and offering services to that constituency effectively was not an easy feat to accomplish. He also had a lot of courage and fortitude. I know very few people who, even during times of pain and suffering, still had a lot of fortitude. I did not have the advantage of going to France to see him there, but there are many of us here in the Senate, in the National Assembly, and the leadership generally who went to France, partly to see him particularly, but some in the middle of their business in France and so on. And he was always ready to be seen and engage those who had gone to see him. And sometimes you would find, you would engage in conversation that a person who was going through so much pain would not be able to bear. So I think he was a unique leader with great promise, and I always thought that there were bigger things coming his way with the type of qualities he had and the capacity. And not only in engaging in leadership formally and institutionally, but even if it came to public advocacy, taking part in engagements which required extra parliamentary means, including demonstrations. And I see my distinguished senator from Nairobi with a smile. I think they can beat you a little bit, although you belong to that category of leaders who is creating a brand. One of the things that I've always tried to tell my friends, that whichever party you belong to, and whichever formation you are in. As an elected leader, you must always create your own brand in politics so that you can be remembered for what you are. And I think Ken is one of the few people who we can remember for the kind of brand he created for himself, despite the fact that he was taking over from somebody who is regarded as a statesman in this country. I hope that his family will have the fortitude and strength to bear this sadness and misery and tragedy meeting a young man of his age. May the good Lord rest his soul in eternal peace. Equally, Mr. Speaker, Governor Laboso was a trail blazer because he did a lot of things which many people of her time and her age were not able to accomplish. In a matter of a decade, he became the first female deputy speaker of the National Assembly and was amongst the first 3 women governors in the country. And she was truly learned. People read literature, and sometimes you would find they probably read English literature and were proficient in English. It is rare to find somebody who got the highest degrees in English and French. And I know the French are very proud. I used to have a French teacher called Monsieur Pujos. The French believe they're the best in the arts. And if you had...
Senator Kibiru, what is your intervention?
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, we need protection from the 2 senators. They are making a lot of noise that we are not used to noise at the back bench.
Let's consult in low tones, the honorable senators.
And then to go down in Bomet, I've lived in Kericho, the larger Kericho, and to be elected governor from that area was a feat. And I hope that the lady senators who are here, distinguished senators, we want to see you in the next coming elections becoming governors. I can see some of you there. Yeah, you have what it takes to be governors. I think Kenya will be a better place with more ladies as governors than the men. The men have been a little bit of a disappointment. Some of them are thieves. and out of those lady governors, none of them has been questioned or subjected to any serious investigations. There may be a question here or there, but I think largely, even proportionately, I think they have done very, very well. Just like the lady senators here, when we are all gone, they are still here in the House until 6:30. I don't know where women we hurry to, and they sit here until the Speaker has adjourned the House until the next day. So I really pray for the family of Governor Laboso. And also to make Kenya one place. Now we are mourning this great lady who is truly a Kenyan. People are mourning in Kisumu. People are mourning in Bomet. We are mourning in Siaya. Yeah, truly a Kenyan. This is the wonderful thing about women, because they can make the world truly one place. Men are a little bit backward, but women can live anywhere, anytime, and rise above, the rest in life. So, again, I hope the Almighty will put the soul of Governor Laboso in eternal peace. Asante sana, Bwana Speaker.
I see a lot of interest, and therefore, for equity and fairness, I'll give those who are going to speak from now on 3 minutes. Senator Nderitu.
Asante sana Bwana Spika. Nachukua fursa hii kwanza kuleta risala zangu za rambirambi na watu wa Laikipia kwa mwenda zake Governor Laboso na mwenda zake Mheshimiwa Ken. Na jambo ambalo linavunja moyo sana ni ya kwamba kile ambacho kimefanya waweze kutoka katika dunia hii yetu ni ugonjwa ambao ni wa saratani. Na ikiwa huu ugonjwa wa saratani, kwangu mimi naona ni kama funzo kwetu sisi ambao tumebaki. Nini tuweze tukafanya kuweza kupigana na hili janga la saratani, kwa sababu ugonjwa wa saratani imekuwa ni kizungumkuti kwetu sisi, na ningeomba ikiwezekana, jambo ambalo tungekuwa tukiangalia ni ya kwamba katika kaunti zetu zote 44 tuweze kuweka mahabara iweze kutumika kuangalia ugonjwa huu wa saratani, kwa sababu jambo hili limekuwa linasumbua sana.
Pengine ni kutatiza kidogo.
Namkumbuka Gavana Laboso.
Pengine ni kutatiza kidogo kwamba hoja ya ugonjwa wa saratani itajadiliwa kwa undani baada ya kutoa rambirambi zetu. Kwa hivyo kama ni kupitia tu upitie kiujuu, alafu uliongelee kiundani wakati ya mjadala huo.
Nakubaliana naye 100%. Sitaki kuliingia kwa mapana na marefu. Nilitaka tu kutaja, lakini nakumbuka Gavana Laboso, namkumbuka kwa utendaji kazi wake. Nakumbuka mwaka uliopita mwezi wa 7 tuliungana na yeye katika kongamano la magavana pale Amerika, na nikaona mtu ambaye alijitolea mhanga kufa akifanya kazi yake kwa umakini na werendi mwingi kabisa. Kwa hivyo namkumbuka kwa moyo mgumu, na vile vile nataka kusema ya kwamba sikuwa nimeweza kupatana na mbunge wa Kibra, lakini kwa yale ambayo nimesoma maneno yake, ni mtu ambaye anaonekana akiwa kama kijana alifanya kazi yake kwa kujitolea, na kila wakati wote nilipomuona nilimuona ni mtu aliyependa kutabasamu, ni mtu wa furaha. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri tuwe sisi kama viongozi, na kama viongozi tusome kutoka kwa wale ya kwamba mtu anapopewa jukumu aifanye kwa umahiri na kumakinika. Sina mengi, lakini ni kusema ya kwamba Mungu ailaze nyoyo zao mahali pema peponi. Asante.
Senator Kilonzo Mutula Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. I wish to also pass my condolences on behalf of my family, people of Makueni, to the family of Ken Okoth and Joyce Laboso. Mr. Speaker, on Ken Okoth, our minds will never forget a picture of one of our colleagues. I want to thank him now that he's seated in front of me, Senator Sakaja. The last function where you shared hugs and warmth with Ken Okoth will be in our minds, act in our minds for a long time. Thank you for supporting that brother of ours during his time of need, during the time when he was most frail. Mr. Speaker, I was very saddened yesterday to hear, and let me just say it, that there could be members of this House who are undergoing the same things that these two were undergoing. I wish we could discuss this matter a little more openly so that we can help the people who we can help now that we are alive and we can do something about it. People should not suffer in silence. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, I said this during the funeral of our late colleague from Migori. Mr. Speaker, it's time we set aside our differences as leaders and talk about this matter a little more deeply. Ordinary Kenyans cannot afford the medical care in relation to cancer. They cannot afford. I have posted an article that I found in a newspaper in Britain, and maybe the president and everybody who is involved in this handshake must do this in honor of these two leaders. Treating cancer without chemotherapy. I was visited by a lady. This lady had cancer. She showed me pictures of when she didn't have hair. And she did her treatment without chemotherapy, and her hair grew and she healed. But she tells me the doctor who did that, who is a Kenyan, cannot disclose because his colleagues can get rid of him because cancer is a money-minting venture for the doctors and hospitals. There is treatment. But can we discuss this more openly? Because there is a doctor in Kenya who can treat cancer patients without chemotherapy. It's available. These cancer centers and oncology, if you go to Apollo in India, you'll be shocked to think that you are sitting in a small province of Kenya out there in India. People seeking treatment for things I think that we can do here. Mr. Speaker, I think that all of us leaders must speak with one voice, not because we have lost leaders, but because ordinary Kenyans are suffering as much as those two leaders were suffering. Two things, and last one. One, I must thank the people of Bomet. It's only until I think today that I discovered that this lady was married to a Luo from Koro. Kenyans are actually not tribal. If they can elect a lady who's married out there in Kisumu. We are the people who bring tribalism to this country. You leaders. Ni nyinyi munaleta hii maneno. And Mr. Speaker, somebody like Ken Okoth, who as a young person at 41 has made such a difference in Kibra, where I went to do abolition blocks when I was president of Rotary when I was 25 years old, just tells you, other than tribalism, if the youth of this country were given an opportunity, would end corruption, would end tribalism, and all the divisions that everybody is talking about. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Margaret Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to join my colleagues in passing my condolences to the two families who are bereaved, the family of the late Honorable Okoth Ken and the late Governor Joyce Laboso. I send both my condolences, that from my family, and I send condolences on behalf of the people of Uasin Gishu County. Mr. Speaker, I didn't get to know the Honorable Ken Okoth, but when I saw 41 years, my heart went for his young family. The children he has left behind within a very short time. And I even watched the people who depended on him. We learned a lot about Ken after his departure because of women who wailed and said that they didn't have anybody else to take care of their children now that Ken is gone. So we have lost somebody that was not only a breadwinner to his family, but also a breadwinner to the community. Mr. Speaker, I join my colleagues that we need to really interrogate this issue called cancer. Because at age 41, you have not even started to live. And we need to really see what it is. Now, when you look at a case like that of Ken, you ask yourself, the little he made in this world, he spent it treating himself, so he has gone with everything. And we need to ask ourselves, how can we make cancer a disease that must be treated through the universal health care that is free? So, Speaker, I knew Joyce for a very long time. She came to this parliament when I was in the 10th parliament. An excellent woman, a trailblazer by excellence. In fact, she took over the Speaker's panel from me when I became an assistant minister of environment. But when she came back in the 10th parliament, there was no doubt that she had performed very well as the Speaker and became our first Deputy Speaker woman, our first woman Deputy Speaker in this country. Joyce worked with us in Parliament and in Kawapa in particular. And Joyce was somebody who freely shared advice. She freely shared ideas. And she wanted the success for everybody. I will never forget, Mr. Speaker, when the 22 members of Parliament, women members of Parliament, were given an opportunity to go for a training course in Sweden, because all of us went. She ended up behaving like a resource person herself, because she had a way of interrogating every situation that we were in, most of the issues that we raised. She kept interrogating all of them, and she said, please let me look at them from the eye of a lecturer, just in case it benefits anybody. So we are going to miss her, As far as Rift Valley women are concerned, she was a woman of excellence, a trailblazer, as I said. In fact, during her campaign to be governor, it was not only South Rift that campaigned. The whole of North Rift went for campaigns. We used to actually go all the way from as far as Trans Nzoia, and all of us, Uasin-Gishu, Nandi, and all of us would go as a convoy to go and campaign for her. It's because we could see a lot in her, her determination and her boldness. For her to have campaigned against a very strong former cabinet minister and a former governor was something that was unique. So we are going to miss, and I want to just put my prayers for the two families, that God may be with them and that He may strengthen them in this time. But Mr. Speaker, the issue of cancer, and I'm glad that we are going to be discussing it in this House, we really need to separate two issues. Whether Kenya is researching on this area or not researching, and if not, we need to start supporting research on these kind of diseases that are wiping our people. Mr. Speaker, I know my colleagues, like myself, have been involved in fundraising for either treatment or funerals because of cancer. And in the last 2 years, hardly have I had myself a month without a case coming before. So, Mr. Speaker, I join you and the House in sending our condolences to the family. Thank you.
Senator Olekina, you are lucky they didn't time you, but keep to 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, sir, on behalf of myself, my family, and the people of Narok County, I rise to express my condolences to my two good friends. I remember December 17th, 2015 was the first time that I shared a podium with the late Honorable Ken Okoth through the Jeff Wenange live show. And I came to appreciate him as a person who really cared about the community and who was a brilliant brain that I will surely miss. June 10th, 2018, Mr. Speaker, sir, I traveled with the governor of Kakamega, and we went to do a fundraiser for Lona Laboso Secondary School. We were hosted by the late Governor Joyce Laboso, whom I found to be a very, very loving, caring leader, a mother, and a person who really cared for the people of Bomet. The people of Bomet have lost a great leader who tried to unite them. And I remember very vividly that when we sat down there together, all she cared about was the legacy of us. In fact, yesterday when I was reminiscing that time, I said to myself, she cared so much about the legacy of our sister. No, has it been off throat? Oh, okay. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm saying in June 10th, 2018, when I shared a podium with the late governor and the governor of Kakamega, the late Joyce Laboso spoke so much about her legacy and how much she cared about leaving a legacy for her sister who had died, and she really wanted to contribute so much to that school so that it can be able to keep the memory of our sister alive. So last night, Mr. Speaker, sir, I kept on thinking and said, she cared about her sister. What about her now? And I think it behooves us as leaders to be able to take this opportunity. We've lost two great minds, we've lost two of our colleagues, to think about how we live our life and to think about this issue of cancer. Mr. Speaker, sir, I know we'll be debating that in detail, but I think it is about time that we really consider about our old age. Old age when we used to be able to control what we eat. This country, Mr. Speaker, said there are a lot of chemicals which are spread all over. And maybe these are the things that are destroying our population. So I think we've got to be bold enough to be able to compare our life now and that of our forebearers to see how they led their life and what it is that we are picking up that is destroying. May the good Lord rest their souls in eternity. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Milgo Alice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this time also to be able to control with the two families. First of all, the family of Ken Okoth, a very youthful leader. And I want to say that Ken Okoth was able to demonstrate that it doesn't matter where one comes from. If anyone was going to work hard, their dreams would be valid. Actually, he was able to transform Kipra constituency and more, especially in terms of education. And to my great governor, the Iron Lady, I want to pass my condolences to her family and to the great people of my county, Bomet County. And I wish to say, Mr. Speaker, that Joyce Laboso actually has borne this disease for well over 28 years and still working very hard. This is one woman who, in this case, was able to make friends all across. She broke barriers by making friends in all communities, and that is why she was even married among the lower communities. And right now, as the minority leader was saying, that is mourning in 3 counties because of such a great leader. That is one leader, Mr. Speaker, who was able to bring peace in my county in a very miraculous way. Our CIDP and our strategic plan for the county is so great, so that I'm only wishing the people who are remaining behind will be able to take it forward, because in a short span, she had done very many things in terms of education. There was even a very progressive universal health care program that she launched recently that is going to take care of the needy people, and based on our interest, or in this case, our passion for education, she put up a very magnificent girls' school in the name of Laboso Girls, where I managed to serve some time back. And in any case, this was a leader who actually wanted to ensure that all our people would be able to benefit from education and to be able to go to greater heights like she did. I want to say this is one woman, Mr. Speaker, who is actually a trailblazer and a mentor for the women folk, and that is why I'm here today myself. And we in the leadership, I want to say we have lost a great leader, a great mentor, a great guide to us, and like all the time she was calling us and really guiding us in terms of how to go about. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, she was able to fight in a very interesting round once she was fighting for the governor position. Just 1 minute, that governor is coming from my county, Mr. Speaker. 1 more minute.
Okay, because of that, summarize, because you're from Bomet.
Okay, so
I added her 1 minute order. I added her 1 minute because she's from Bomet.
Yes. And I wish to say, Mr. Speaker, in recognition of these speakers, I mean these leaders, we have lost many other speakers. I think this high time, maybe council should be declared a national disaster, or in this case, when provide free treatment, Mr. Speaker, and look into the issue of research to be able to ascertain whether it is lifestyle behaviors, or in this case, the type of food that is really causing cancers that are actually affecting people. Every weekend, we are going to party people. If there are 10, out of those 10, 7 of them will have died of cancer. And even right now, there are very many people that are sick out of cancer, Mr. Speaker. And I thank God that after a short while, we'll be speaking to the issue of cancer pill, and I'm sure we'll do something to that. Otherwise, I used to say, may God rest the souls of those two great leaders in eternal peace. Thank you, Mr.
Senator Chilayako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to add my voice to the condolences that are being given to our two great leaders. Mr. Speaker, I buy in totality the positive expressions that have been made in favor of our departed colleagues, and I just want to say the following. Mr. Speaker, Kibra is known for very many things, but one of the things that people never say about Kibera is that Kibra people are capable of electing good leaders. So at this very difficult time, at this very trying time, I want to condole with the people of Kibra for losing their leader, and I also want to congratulate them for giving Ken to the National Assembly.
Let's consult in low tones, senators.
And giving Ken Okoth to the to Parliament. Without the votes and steadfastness of the people of Kibra, most of us would not have interacted with Ken. So I want to applaud the people of Kibra and pray that their strength and wisdom continues as they mourn and bury their leader, and also as they seek for his replacement. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the people of Bomet. Mr. Speaker, for a people to think of electing a lady who in our culture is married in another community, vote for her, defend her, and stand with her. I think the people of Bomet represent the best in terms of the Kenyan electorate. And I think these people deserve our prayers at this time. These people deserve our sympathy at this time. And as they undergo this kind of agony, I want to pray that their wisdom continues, and in future when opportunity presents themselves, they should continue leading Kenyans in choosing the best among us. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, there is a verse in the Bible, that is Proverbs 18:22. It says that a person who finds a wife finds a good thing and is blessed by God. I want to thank God for blessing Dr. Bonyo and his family and giving unto them Laboso. I think she was a good woman, and may God encourage and defend this family at all the time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Omanga.
Asante Bwana Spika. Napenda kujiunga na wenzangu kwa niaba yangu, ya familia yangu na wana Nairobi kiujumla kuomboleza Mheshimiwa Ken Okoth, MP wa Kibra na Madam Governor wa Bomet County. Kusema kweli, ugonjwa wa saratani umetunyang'anya watu wa uadilifu. Na kusema ukweli, kama wenzangu walivyosema, Mheshimiwa Ken ambaye alikuwa ni kijana na kiongozi hapa Nairobi, kwa miaka yake michache kama mbunge wa Kibra, alifanya mengi ambayo mwenye alikuwa na ambaye alikuwa waziri mkuu, ambaye alikuwa mbunge miaka 20 hakuweza kufanya kwa miaka hiyo 20, lakini Bwana Ken alifanya kwa miaka 5 miaka 7 ambaye amekuwa mbunge. Madam Governor ambaye ametuacha pia amekuwa ni mama ambaye ni kioo kwa sisi kina mama ambao tumekuja uongozini. Alikuwa ni mama ambaye ameweza kutuonesha mwelekeo, ni mama ambaye alikuwa pia ni mama ambaye alikuwako pia anatusaidia sisi kina mama ambao sasa ndio tunakuja uongozini.
What's your point of order, Senator?
Bwana Spika, hivi sasa tunatoa maombolezi yetu. Singependa kumuingilia dadangu katikati ya maombolezi yake, lakini umesikia matamshi aliyosema hapo awali. ya kwamba aliyekuwa prime minister hakufanya chochote kwa ile miaka mingi aliyokuwa pale, lakini huyu 20 lakini huyu mwingine marehemu ambaye tunamwomboleza sasa amefanya mengi. Nafikiria mtafaruku kama huo, je, ni sawa kwa yeye kusema kitendo kama hicho ama kusema msemo kama huo? Hiyo hata katika maadili yetu ya standing order, hizi orders, standing orders haziruhusu mheshimiwa kwa mtu ambaye hayuko ndani ya bunge kukashifiwa na mwingine. Asante.
Nafikiria hayo yalikuwa ni maoni yake tu, kwamba akilinganisha vile kazi imefanywa, pengine naona huyu kwa muda mfupi amefanya kazi mzuri, sio eti kwamba pengine yule aliyekuweko hajafanya chochote. Nafikiri ni maoni yake tu. Endelea.
Bwana Spika.
What is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, sir, with all due respect, we did listen to what my colleague was alluding to, and it's a very dangerous trend, because there's no way that the former Prime Minister can be able to defend himself in this House. So I think it is important for us to deviate from issuing such statement unless the Honorable Senator can be able to substantiate her claims. It is not fair, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Okay, Senator, proceed.
Bwana Spika, si kusema aliyekuwa waziri mkuu hajafanya chochote. Ile niliweza kusema ni malio yangu, ni vile naweza kuomboleza mimi kama Millicent. Nasema kama mwana Nairobi kuwa ambaye alituacha Mheshimiwa Ken amefanya mengi kwa miaka 5 ambaye haikufanyika awali. Kama sisi wenyeji Nairobi na tunaishi kule hizo Kibira na tuko na mama zetu, watoto wetu ambao wanaishi kule, sisi tunasema kuwa ameweza kutusaidia, ameweza kujenga mashule kule Kibra ambaye hayakuwa kabla yeye kuingia uongozini. Sijasema kuwa aliyekuwa hajafanya chochote. Nilisema kwa maoni yangu na kwa maombolezi yangu kwa huyu kiongozi ametuacha kweli, ametufanyia mengi kuliko ambaye yenye tulifanyiwa miaka iliyopita, miaka 25. Na ningependa kuomboleza na kutoa majonzi yangu kweli kwa ambao hawa wawili wametuacha. Na ndio kwamba Bwana Spika, tunasema huu ugonjwa ya saratani tunafaa tuangalie, na si hata kutibu, lakini tuweke mikakati ambayo watu waweze kuonekana kabla ugonjwa hujaweza kuingia kwa mwili, na tuweze kuwa pia na mafunzo kwa wananchi ambaye kwa ile vile tunafaa kuishi na vile tunafaa kula. Na pia kama hizi nyama ambao zinakuja tunajua ina maugonjwa, pia inafaa iwe iangaliwe madaraja ya serikali ambaye imeidhinishwa kuangalia hizi vitu ambazo watu wanafaa kula, yanafaa kuangalia kwa umakini. Asante sana Bwana Spika.
Senator Moses Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join you. I join the nation on behalf of myself, my family, the people of Bungoma and the Ford Kenya fraternity to bring our condolences to the families of our departed brother Ken Okoth, the MP for Kibra, and Mama Joyce Laboso, the governor of Bomet. Mr. Speaker, Ken Okoth brought life and gusto to youthful leadership in this country, in general, Nairobi in particular. Representing a complex constituency like Kibra, Mr. Speaker, was not easy. Yet Ken Okoth did it with ease. He was popular, he was amiable, he was accessible, and above all, Mr. Speaker, he was a friend to all. We had an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to visit Ken in hospital in Paris. And he had such a strong will to live, Mr. Speaker. And he told us when we were with him that he knew that he didn't have much long to live, but he also knew that in the short life he has had, he has done a lot of things. Ken goes down, Mr. Speaker, as one of the few young members of parliament who have turned around a constituency and definitely left it better than he found it. We pray, Mr. Speaker, that his soul may rest in eternal peace and that the people of Kibra will have an opportunity to have yet another Ken Okoth to carry on with the crusade and the journey that he had started. Mr. Speaker, Joyce Laboso is a woman like no other. She fought hard, she distinguished herself, she was successful, and above all, Mr. Speaker, she succeeded where nobody expected her to succeed. During the campaigns, Mr. Speaker, we had a mammoth rally in Green Stadium in Bomet. And after the rally, she called me. I think she was watching because it was carried live. And the rally was really big. And she laughed and said, "Weta, hiyo ni kiti yangu." Those were her words in Kiswahili. Hiyo ni kiti yangu. You guys have come to Bomet. You have been amused by the presence of huge crowds, but the votes will come.
Okay, 1 minute, please.
Was not easy, Mr. Speaker. Isaac Aruto was an institution and had a huge stature politically in this country. But Joyce made minced meat of him and won the seat. We salute her, and Mr. Speaker, may the good Lord rest her soul in eternal peace. Mr. Speaker, as I finish, the whole country is talking about cancer. Like Senator Murkomen, I think, said, it's not about just the Minister of Health, but all intergovernmental agencies involved in lives. Whether it is a question of feeding, whether it's a question of keeping ourselves healthy through exercises, and above all, Mr. Speaker, we want to encourage the government that setting up, I heard Senator Beth Mugo say yesterday, that installing machines everywhere to detect cancer is not a solution. Helping people to avoid getting cancer is what we must be doing, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, may I also, Mr. Speaker, send condolences to the family and the friends of our colleague in the lower house, Bernard Shinali of Ikolomani, whose 30-year-old son died in the US through a very freak swimming pool accident. And may the family also be given strength as we wait for him to bring the body and the remains of his son for burial. I know my distinguished nephew knows the family very well, and I'm sure he feels the way I feel. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, honorable senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students, pupils, and teachers from Mudhaika Primary School, Narok County. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Senator Sakaja. You'll get an opportunity when you are contributing to
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to condole with the families of our colleagues. Mr. Speaker, on my own behalf and on behalf of the people of Nairobi, first of all, I want to thank colleagues for condoling with the people of Nairobi. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to give my own condolences to Ken's family and Dr. Laboso's families. Mr. Speaker, we've really lost. It's been a very tough few weeks. we've lost very many friends over the past few weeks, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in Kenya, I've lost a brother, I've lost a colleague, a friend, one of my most effective members of parliament in Nairobi. In 2013, Mr. Speaker, when we came to parliament, we came together as young MPs, and we formed what we call the Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association, and where I still am the chair. Then Ken was my first treasurer. And we had agreed as young legislators to come across political divide, across parties, to push the agenda for young people. And Ken stood very strong, despite a lot of pressure then, because those who were in my committee at that time from ODM, and they were the majority, were being asked how they elected the chairman of TNA to be chairman of KYPA. But Ken made a strong case, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even in the run-up to this election, I remember a photo went out where I was with Ken at a social place, and he was under a lot of pressure. People were even calling him a mole, because he was interacting freely with me. And we said, Mr. Speaker, that we should never allow politics to divide us. We are proud of what Ken has done. Ken is homegrown, was born in Kibra. He was the first member who they felt, he really, because he came from there, really understood the issues. He was passionate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, he believed in what we call in Nairobi siasa safi, that no matter where you're from, no matter your tribe, no matter your name, we can all coexist and we can stay as brothers. His passion for education was palpable, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, we've lost a man with a great heart, a great vision. I was with Ken just the other day, Mr. Speaker, at a function. He had invited me to Kibra, and I went to support him. And during that function, because before Ken went to France early in the year, we had sat down on Dennis Sprit Road, and he had told me he'll just go for a few months and come back. And during that function, he was very optimistic that after September.
Time is up. Time is up. He's a member of parliament of very many people. But being the senator of Nairobi, I'll give you an additional 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, he had hopes of going back. In fact, he had been told that the treatment that can be done now locally would be enough until September for him to go back. So, Mr. Speaker, because of time, really, we have really lost as Nairobians. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, there are meetings going on. Members who are interested, because we had been contributing as KYPA, the Young Parliamentarians, but tomorrow we'll do a list for all members to contribute for Ken, and we can give details of the program of his funeral. Finally, Dr. Laboso was also a friend. I'm happy that on Sunday I was able to go to hospital. We had met, or rather we became close in the last parliament where she was the deputy speaker. And Mr. Speaker, in 2016, when we went to Philadelphia for the Democratic National Convention for Hillary Clinton, I remember going to print for Kofia's written, my choice is Joyce. And the joke was that people in Bomet would say, choice, my choice, and not differentiate the J and the CH, Mr. Speaker. She was brilliant. And I want to thank Edwin, the husband, who's also my friend, for standing strong. We will miss them both. Finally, my friend, my member of parliament from rural home, Ikolomani, Bernard Shinali, has also lost his son. It's a family that I know very well. We come from the same village. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to give my condolences. Thank you.
Order, Senators. The next bill is about cancer. So I've requested the mover to spend a few minutes, move the bill, issue condolences, and then we continue with along the same lines. It's about cancer, which is now a national disaster. And the two members whom we are eulogizing have died because of cancer. And therefore, on that note, I will leave it there and now direct that we reorganize the business a little bit and go straight to order number 10, Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2019. Next order.
Order number 10, the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 9 of 2019, second reading.
Senator Dr. Ali. Keep the promise.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
What is it, Senator Wetangula?
Mr. Speaker, I know we've gone digital and the bills are posted on the screen of our gadgets. But when a bill is being moved, Mr. Speaker, you want to read through, underline certain sections and do all sorts of writing before you contribute intelligently. Can the clerk's table be bringing at least several copies of the hard copy of the bills to put here for those of us who want to read and who can read and underline and analyze the bills?
I thought, Senator Wetangula, we went digital. That bill is on your screen.
It is on the screen, Mr. Speaker, but how do I underline the salient points on the screen before I come to contribute?
All right, it's going to be provided. I direct that a few copies be provided to members on request, starting with the Senator for Bungoma, who already has a copy. Proceed, Senator Dr. Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I stand here first to give my condolences to the families of the MP for Kipra and the governor for Bomet. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2019, be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, sir, the aim of this bill is to amend the Cancer Prevention and Control Act number 15 of 2012 in order to align it to the Constitution and bring medical services touching on cancer closer to the people. To achieve this, the bill seeks to provide a framework for collaboration between the National Cancer Institute of Kenya and the county governments, and outlining the specific role of county governments in the prevention, diagnosis, treatment, and control of cancer. Mr. Speaker, sir, globally, cancer causes more death than HIV, stroke, AIDS, TB, and malaria combined. The cancer burden in low and middle-income countries, where our country belongs, accounts for 70% of the global cancer burden. In Kenya, cancer is the third leading cause of death and second among non-communicable diseases, accounting for over 7% of the overall mortality rate. Mr. Speaker, despite these alarming statistics, the prioritization of prevention, screening, and early detection of cancer as provided for under the Cancer Prevention and Control Act and the National Cancer Control Strategy 2017-22, cancer screening and early detection services are not available at the primary health care level. Facilities offering cancer treatment and palliative care are mainly available at the national level and a few private hospitals. Hence, the reason for mass movement of cancer patients to foreign countries in search of treatment. Mr. Speaker, sir, whereas cancer can be manageable, in Kenya, more than 70% of patients diagnosed with cancer are at advanced stages with high incidence of misdiagnosis and inadequate screening, hindering early detection. The challenge posed by the lack of adequate cancer screening, treatment, and palliative care is a huge burden, which we must address as a country with the urgency it deserves. Our Constitution provides for two levels of government, the national and county government. This system of governance is intended to bring power as well as resources and services closer to the people. Mr. Speaker, under the fourth schedule to the Constitution, health is their devolved function. County governments are responsible for establishment and management of county health services. Additionally, the Health Act provides the county government are responsible for, among other things, financing and further development staffing of health facilities, procuring and managing of health supplies, coordinating health activities, monitoring and of standards, reporting on called health. Mr. Speaker, sir, although the Cancer Prevention and Control Act was enacted in 2012, after the promulgation, the Act leans towards centralization of services as regards prevention, treatment, and control of cancer. The only function to be performed by counties under this Act is conducting educational and information campaigns on prevention, treatment, and control within their respective counties. The bill therefore proposes to re-engineer the provision of services relating to the prevention, treatment, and control of cancer by bringing the county government on board with a view to effectively address the ever-worsening burden associated with cancer. To achieve this, the bill proposes to amend sections 2, 5, 6, 20, and 21 of the Cancer Prevention and Control Act. The bill also proposes to insert a new Part 3A to provide the specific functions of county governments. Mr. Speaker, sir, whereas Section 6 of the Act provides for a board of trustees responsible for the administration and overall governance of the National Cancer Institute of Kenya, Section 2 of the Act defines the board as the board of management established under Section 6. Clause 2 proposes to amend Section 2 of the Act to redefine the word board. Mr. Speaker, sir, Section 4 of the Act establishes the National Cancer Institute of Kenya. Pursuant to Section 5 of the Act, this institute is responsible for all matters relating to cancer prevention, treatment, and control in the country, including advising the Cabinet Secretary, establishment of hospitals, care centers, and other institutions to address issues touching on cancer. Despite the fact that the bulk of healthcare is devolved, the functions of the institute have not been aligned to the functions of county government. To address this gap, Clause 3 of the bill proposes to amend Section 5 of this Act so that the institute advises both the national and the county governments, coordinate services provided by the national government, and collaborate with the county governments in all matters related to cancer, including to establish facilities, delivery of services.
Order. Order, Senator Milgo. You're seated like a roadside vegetable seller.
Facilities, establish facilities, delivery of.
What is this, Senator Sakaja?
Mr. Speaker, sorry for, I will not wish to interrupt the Vice Chair of Health, but I just want, Mr. Speaker, your consideration of Standing Order number 90 and how it is applied, the application of it. Because, Mr. Speaker, members, especially first-time members, might be confused with the application of Standing Order 90 with respect to speeches being read. So kindly, your direction, Mr. Speaker, is necessary. I know Senator Dr. Ali is a very experienced legislator, but to what extent can a speech be read or reference be made, Mr. Speaker?
Order, Senator Dr. Ali, you're supposed to make references to your moving notes. The reading of speeches is not allowed, whether you are moving or debating a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The way I was proposing the bill, I said the bill proposes to amend Section 6 of the Act by bringing on board 2 county directors in the board from the COG, who will suggest that. And also, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have added a new Part 3 to the Act because this bill proposes to align the Act to the functions of the county government. Clauses 5 and 6 of the bill proposes to amend Section 20 and 21 of the Act to obligate the county governments to maintain county cancer registers specific to the respective counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, Clause 7 of the bill seeks to amend the Act by inserting a new Part 3A to address the prevention and control of cancer in counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, the bill also proposes new section 22A, which makes provision for the roles of county government in the prevention and the control of cancer in counties, obligating county government to establish cancer centers and palliative care facilities, employ adequate personnel, implement national policies and standards. Mr. Speaker, sir, the proposed new section 22B makes it mandatory for every county to establish a county center within the respective counties. The functions of the county center county cancer center are set out under proposed new section 22C. Mr. Speaker, the proposed new section 22D on its part outlines the framework for reporting by a county cancer center. Mr. Speaker, the burden of cancer is placing a huge our country so huge that the county and in the country in particular, those people responsible suffer a lot. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is what I intend to present, and I will ask Honorable Professor Musuruve to second. So I beg to move. Thank you.
Senator Musuruve, an exercise standing order number 1, you also don't have more than 10 minutes, so that to allow the other colleagues to not only debate the bill, but also to give their condolences.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to second this motion. But before I second the motion, the bill, Mr. Speaker, I pass my condolences to the families of late Honorable Joyce Laboso and late Honorable Ken Okoth. And I just want to say on behalf of my family and persons with disabilities, I say pole to the friends, relatives, and the nation at large. Mr. Speaker, I really want to speak to this motion, to this bill, and I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that this bill is coming at the right time when we are talking about issues of cancer. And I want to say that the amendments are coming in handily. Now, these amendments are actually amending the Principal Act of 2012. In the Principal Act of 2012, Mr. Speaker, counties were not really factored in, and cancer was looked at from a national perspective. And being from a national perspective, Mr. Speaker, it was not possible to really address the real Kenyan and reach out to the real Kenyan who is actually affected by cancer. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that cancer is very expensive, and for common wananchi, it is not really it is not easy to manage, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say also that as a cancer survivor, I went through the hassle of trying to look for funds in order to go for treatment in India. It was not very easy, but Mr. Speaker, these amendments are good because they will allow for the common wananchi to be able to access, diagnosis in terms of cancer at a county level. Common wananchi will be able to be screened at the county level, and then even at the county level, it will be possible to treat and even ensure that palliative care is given to common wananchi. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that in this country, when issues of cancer come out, we talk about them strongly when leaders are affected, but we need to speak to this issue so that we ensure that the common wananchi is actually getting the service. As you're speaking right now, Mr. Speaker, the whole nation, in fact, the entire nation is looking at the Senate, is looking at us to see what legislative measures we are coming up with to ensure that the common man is actually getting the services. Mr. Speaker, there is need at the county level for common wananchi to be able to access the drugs of cancer, to be able to afford the drugs of cancer, to be able to even be treated, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that there's need for county governments to take up this responsibility. And this bill is speaking to that because it's talking about coming up with cancer centers in the 47 counties. And Mr. Speaker, I support this because if we have cancer centers in all 47 counties, it means that county governments are going to really ensure that they're factoring in the issue of cancer prevention, diagnosis, and treatment. And Mr. Speaker, even this bill is addressing issues of ensuring that county governments are factoring in the issue of cancer. It should be one of the development plans for the counties. And Mr. Speaker, every county should come up with a budget to ensure that even in the budget, one of the core issues that they're looking at is how they're going to prevent cancer, how they're going to ensure that there's also palliative care for those who are going through cancer, how they're going to ensure that even the psychological treatment for those who are going through cancer. And Mr. Speaker, when it comes to issue of cancer, so many Kenyans are ignorant about issues of cancer. Mr. Speaker, this program, the centers are going to be centers that are also going to educate people about cancer. Because even when it comes to causes of cancer, we have generational causes of cancer. We have genetic causes of cancer. We have the risk factors of cancer, Mr. Speaker. And so when we are talking about issues of cancer, there is need for a lot of research to be done at county level, so that even at county level, it will be possible for counties to really know how to deal with this issue. And Mr. Speaker, this bill is talking about the issue of research. Mr. Speaker, there's need for us to see how we can actually ensure that these services are reaching out to the common man. As you're talking about universal health care, Mr. Speaker, it is not possible to achieve the Vision 2030 of well-being for all Kenyans if we are not able to curb this maintenance of cancer. And Mr. Speaker, treatment should reach to the common man. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, even NHIF should come in and ensure that it is also covering cancer patients. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say that even there are so many families affected by cancer, Mr. Speaker, and these are issues we must address as a Senate, we must address as a Parliament, because if we do not address the well-being of people in the counties, there is no way we'll be a productive nation. And Mr. Speaker, for the nation to be productive, we must ensure that we actually ensure that we are cancer-free. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that when it comes to issue of cancer, so many doctors have decided it's a money bag for Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. It is extremely expensive. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say, even as I'm speaking right now, there are some centers that assume that they're the ones to deal with cancer. And even when it comes to research and all that, those are the centers that do not really come in to encourage research. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, we must invest in our oncologists. We must invest in the area of cancer. We must ensure that we are training our own personnel. If we are not able to train our own personnel, as counties will not be doing well as a nation. Mr. Speaker, there are so many people who go out of the country for treatment. Why do they go out of the country for treatment? They go because they're looking for specialized treatment. But it's possible to train our own oncologists, to train our own personnel, and then cancer will be affordable, Mr. Speaker, for Kenyans. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, there are so many Kenyans who are bleeding out there, Mr. Speaker, with regard to the issue of cancer. And I know them. In fact, some of these cancer patients, when I fear calling them, because most of the time I call them, they ask for money. They want to go for treatment. Most of the time, they call me, they're asking for money to go for drugs. Mr. Speaker, I'm not a government. We must make legislations in this House to ensure that patients get accessible treatment with regard to cancer. It is available and it is also affordable, Mr. Speaker. Because even when it comes to cancer drugs, they're so expensive. The common man cannot afford that. The common man can just wallow in pain and wait for God to say, come home. Mr. Speaker, we must address this issue as a Senate, and it is an issue that we cannot rest on our laurels. When Kenyans are dying, when Kenyans are watching on us, when Kenyans are waiting to see what is the Senate doing, the national policy on cancer should cascade. It should go down to the county governments, and even we should hold county executives to task. They need to come even to the Senate and tell us what exactly are they doing, because this bill says very clearly there is need for a register in all counties. This center is supposed to have a register of people who have been diagnosed of cancer, and even after being diagnosed of cancer, the activities that they have done with regard to ensuring that they're curbing the disease. And Mr. Speaker, even the money that goes to the counties, the money should be used for the purpose of ensuring that we are preventing cancer. We need to bring county executives, they should even bring a report to the Senate for us to see what exactly are they doing in the parliament, in the counties. How are they curbing the disease? How are they ensuring that Kenyans are not dying every other time because of cancer? Mr. Speaker, we should not keep quiet, and we should just move on as a Senate to ensure that we are really addressing this issue, because Kenyans are relying on us. Kenyans are depending on the policies that we are going to make in this House for the purpose of ensuring that we are curbing the disease. Because if we say, Mr. Speaker, that we want to declare cancer to be a national disaster, that is not enough, Mr. Speaker. We can say, yes, it is a national disaster. So what? What after that? So the what after that is what will really make people know what you're doing as a Senate. And I'm telling you, Mr. Speaker, if we walk our talk as a Senate, Kenyans are going to commend this Senate. The Kenyans are going to commend this 12th Parliament for curbing the disease. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, there's a time when there was a disease that was really magnificent, and it was claiming many lives. That was AIDS. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that in 2011, what happened, the President of Obasanjo decided that he was going to call state leaders to address this issue. Mr. Speaker, world leaders converged, and they said, yes, it is true AIDS is there. Yes, it is true AIDS is killing a number of people, and we must do something in order to curb the disease. And Mr. Speaker, countries invested a lot of money in research, and they ensured that this disease came to a stop. Mr. Speaker, it is possible for it to come to a stop. 1 minute, kindly.
I'll give you 2.
Thank you. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that if we come together as leaders and we say, yes, it is true that cancer is there. Yes, it is true that cancer is taking away our youths. Cancer is taking away our youngs, old people. Cancer is taking away our men and our women. If we accept this issue and we agree it is a phenomenon, then we can invest in research and ensuring, Mr. Speaker, that it comes to a stop. Because even the debates I hear about cancer, the debates that are misled, Mr. Speaker. Somebody will say, do not eat this, do not eat this. And Mr. Speaker, when you go to hospital again, you'll be told, if you don't eat this, you'll have marasmus. If you don't eat, you'll lose. So, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to issue of cancer, there are so many diverse causes of cancer. And these diverse causes have diverse treatment also, and diverse approaches towards cancer. So, Mr. Speaker, this is something we need to take with a lot of seriousness as a Senate, because I know, Mr. Speaker, when we take it seriously as a Senate, the nation will appreciate. Even as we condole our leaders who are dying of cancer, even as we condole the Kenyans who are dying with cancer, we must come up with a practical solution of ensuring that cancer comes to a stop. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You beg to order, Senator Msuruve.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to second.
That's very passionate, Senator Msuruve. Order members, I propose the question, which is that the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2019, be now read a second time. Meanwhile, I would want to recognize guests, visitors who are with us in the public gallery. These are students and teachers of Cheboney Girls High School from Bomet County. They are welcome to the proceedings of Senate this afternoon. Thank you. Senator Kangata.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to support the proposed amendment by Senator from Wajir. Thank you. These are very timely amendments. Mr. Speaker, sir, Kenya is currently in the midst of an epidemic of what we call non-communicable diseases. Mr. Speaker, sir, that includes cancer, it includes diabetes, it includes things like high blood pressure, and therefore it is time that we come up with sophisticated interventions to ensure our people do not die out of these new non-communicable diseases. Mr. Speaker, sir, there are several interventions that this country can do to ensure we don't have that problem a lot. Number one, Mr. Speaker, I propose that we teach our people to eat healthy food. It is said that we are as healthy as what we eat. Mr. Speaker, sir, our old parents, the African roots and culture, people used to eat things like arrowroots, things like sweet potatoes. We used to drink porridge. But these days, we are now drinking sodas. We are now eating what we call processed foods. Science has been able to prove that indeed consumption of such things is one of the many causes for cancer. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, we would urge our people to revert back to what we call African roots and culture, in particular issues concerning consumption of what I would call the natural food, It has been able to, that it is what has made our forefathers since years to be there and to live a healthy life, as opposed to the current incidents where people are now consuming more sugary foods, more processed foods, which is not quite healthy, and one of the causes of cancer, Mr. Speaker, sir. Number two, Mr. Speaker, sir, we would urge our counties to continue diagnosing. Early detection of cancer can assist in ensuring we do more intervention. Mr. Speaker, sir, you'll find that personally, in Murang'a County, I've been conducting what we call free medical camps without any support of the government, without any support of any donor. The little money that we are paid here in Senate, I usually save some little, and I conduct medical camps. For instance, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll be having one medical camp originally I planned it on 4th of August, but I have now rescheduled it to 17th of August. One of the services that I'm going to render, Mr. Speaker, sir, is free cancer screening. The idea of that, Mr. Speaker, sir, is to ensure we screen our people for free. We do what we call palm smear, where we want to see whether you can be able to check what we call cervical cancer for our women. We also do other forms of physical examination of what we call breast cancer, so that we can do better and better interventions. Mr. Speaker, sir, this amendment by our brother can assist in that endeavor to raise public awareness that there are simple ways of checking whether you have cancer. Simple ways, for instance, to go to our clinics and do diagnosis of cancer, some form of cancer, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore, I support that amendment to the extent that maybe my endeavor, other private donors, other public interventions can continue making our people knowledgeable on issue concerning cancer. Mr. Speaker, sir, the third intervention, which I think is captured in this bill, is the one that is aimed at ensuring our level 3, level 4 hospitals can become cancer centers. Mr. Speaker, sir, currently, I have seen those interventions here in Nairobi. They tend to be quite expensive. And therefore, the poor people of this country cannot be able to come all the way to Nairobi, or what we call referral hospitals, to get good cancer services. This proposal, I hope it is going to devolve those curative interventions at the grassroots level, so that, for instance, in Murang'a County, I would want to hear a person from, let's say, Madhyoya constituency, a person from, let's say, Kangema constituency, a person from Maragua in Makoyo, for instance, can be able to access this, what I would call cancer curative or interventions at that grassroots level. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want now to talk about the two gentlemen, the two members of parliament, leaders. I take this opportunity on behalf of myself, my family, and the people of Murang'a to express grief for the loss of the two leaders. I knew them at a personal level by virtue that I was a member of the National Assembly between 2013 and 2017. At that time, both those two leaders also served in the 11th Parliament, in the National Assembly. I knew the Deputy Speaker then, Madam Joyce, as a very good person, very amiable, who was very selfless, and the people of Bomet will surely miss her. Let me also take this opportunity to eulogize my personal friend, Mr. Ken Okoth. Mr. Ken was a very good friend of mine. One, he was a fairly young person, and therefore we have lost a young leader. He was also quite thoughtful. I recall one day we appeared with him at a debate in Citizen TV, and he was able to persuade me that he thinks the government should not intervene in the management of KQ. To him, he thought that was what we call a grand project that at times may not add value. He gave very solid arguments to give quite an unconventional issue, and I was very impressed by him. But most importantly, Ken will always be remembered by the people of Kibra. We all know Kibra. It is a constituency comprising of one of the largest ghettos in this world. It is an area with huge poverty, what we call
Summarize, Senator Kangata. The levels of interest are very high.
Oh, sorry, I was waiting for the
No.
dotted. Okay,
Please summarize.
Okay, but I will finish. Oh, yeah.
I guessed as much.
Yeah, I was looking.
You
for
are just going round and round, which is against the standing orders anyway.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to say we missed Ken, and we shall always love him, particularly the people of Kibra and those of us who also come from, those of us who are associated with him in the National Assembly. Thank you.
Members, some of the best speeches are normally short. Those most remembered speeches are short and brutally precise. Senate Majority Leader.
The Speaker, I thank the mover of this very important amendment bill for recognizing the fact that the involvement of the counties in the fight against this very serious scourge of cancer has not been done for the last many years. And Mr. Speaker, I have had really the mover and the seconder of this motion make very passionate presentations. And one of the things that we must really tell ourselves is that, yes, it's important to have good equipment for diagnosis of cancer. That's a good step at the local level. The next thing, Mr. Speaker, is to ask ourselves, once it's been diagnosed, what can be done? Mr. Speaker, what kind of treatment is available? Or is it going to be a death sentence for everybody who, Mr. Speaker, we discover that they have cancer? There are many stories that are untold about cancer survivors and victors and people who have survived. And one of them, two of them are in this house, Mr. Speaker. The Senator Beth Mugo and Senator Msuruve, Mr. Speaker, have gone public to say they have survived the scourge of cancer by going through the right treatment. And Mr. Speaker, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o was among the first leaders to go public also on the same. And so, Mr. Speaker, the thing we actually need to now amplify is not just the diagnosis, but to tell people that it is possible to do early diagnosis, but the country has provided mechanism for also successful treatment. Because, Mr. Speaker, just like in the scourge of HIV/AIDS, one of the reasons why people never wanted to, in the past, never wanted to go and test whether they're HIV positive or not, is because some fear that once you find it, you wait for the day to die. But now, because there is hope and there is treatment, Mr. Speaker, many people are willing to go through the process of diagnosis of whether or not they're HIV positive. The same way, we must, first of all, provide mechanism for treating persons who are found to have cancer, Mr. Speaker, or whatever kind of tumors, Mr. Speaker, as a country. And how is that going to be possible? Only through universal health care. Mr. Speaker, universal health care means that it is possible for every citizen to get health care in this country. And how can we guarantee this universal health care? Is to have, Mr. Speaker, universal health coverage. And so when you talk about health insurance in this country, we need to move the NHIF program to a level where, Mr. Speaker, we are able to treat everybody that is going to go through any kind of disease, including cancer. And because the cost, Mr. Speaker, of treating cancer is so high, the pain and suffering that many of the patients go through, Mr. Speaker, I must confess that, Mr. Speaker, I even feared to go and see my friend, the late Governor Joyce Laboso in hospital, because the pain and suffering she went through the last few days, Mr. Speaker, was just unbearable. I was there 2 days before she passed on, Mr. Speaker. It was just pain. Mr. Speaker, indescribable. And it's not just her. Any person who has been able to see a patient of cancer, Mr. Speaker, the pain, the suffering, and the suffering that the family goes through. Just imagine going for treatment in London, you move to, Mr. Speaker, to India, come back here, air flights, the way she came to the country, Mr. Speaker, the means of transport and so forth. Just for both Ken and Dr. Joyce Laboso, Mr. Speaker, it's just terrible. But we must make a little heaven down here. And the only way as leaders we can make a little heaven down here is to guarantee our people universal health care. And the best way to do so is, Mr. Speaker, in my own opinion, to ensure that once we give the equipment that we've given to every county, we must move a step further and make this universal health care and the insurance, Mr. Speaker, we are supposed to give to the people of Kenya accessible to every citizen of this republic. Now, the last thing I want to say is that, Mr. Speaker, we must also have proper research. What's the point of having, universities in this country that have fantastic professors that can do research, oncologists and so forth, Mr. Speaker, if there's no link between them and the society itself? We waited until we have doctors from India for them to be able to go and treat certain diseases in certain parts of the country that were usually ignored. For example, skin cancers, Mr. Speaker, among others. Is it possible that government takes, we in leadership and through the national government, Mr. Speaker, through this program, the Big Four agenda of universal health care, can we move, Mr. Speaker, the practice of medicine from exclusion of the university and medical centers to the rural level? The way we do, like Senator Kangata said, most people here do medical camps. Is it possible to have that kind of practice being seen at the local level? And then how can we integrate, Mr. Speaker, natural, because I know of a certain lady in my county, Mr. Speaker, whom the son I employed, who kept saying they kept using what we call traditional medicine to treat cancer. Unbelievably, that was about 5 years ago, and his mother is still alive, Mr. Speaker, taking local medicine and treatment. Is there a way we can move beyond this argument that, when people are being treated of cancer, the medicine are expensive, like Senator Msuruve said, and it becomes a mechanism for profiteering, Mr. Speaker? And can we also people be given honest answer that, Mr. Speaker, maybe if you don't do chemotherapy, Mr. Speaker, you live longer, than to maybe precipitate with certain treatments or surgeries or so forth, Mr. Speaker. This information must be put in public. Mr. Speaker, the last thing, so that I'm saying the last. We are getting confused as citizens. When such situations occur, if you go to social media, WhatsApp groups, everywhere, people are sending information, all kinds of information as to what causes cancer. Some say, if you drink water which is in a bottle, Mr. Speaker, some say if you drink hot tea. A research which was put in the public was that because people are drinking a lot of tea in Bomet and Kericho, there is a lot of cancer of esophagus. Some of them is difficult to believe, but you see, at the moment of desperation, citizens get confused and people panic. And the information that is, where do we go for proper information that people can take and, Mr. Speaker, use it for purpose of, like, for example, the thing that disturbs my mind at the moment, if you go to many places in my region, in the North Rift, many people take the maize that have aflatoxins, the ones that have become, have gone bad, and they grind all of them and give them to cattle, Mr. Speaker, to cows to take. Now, when the cows take, we are told the milk will have, traces of aflatoxins, and then again we are told that causes cancer. This kind of, why then, if that is true, why is it that, Mr. Speaker, that practice is still prevalent in our whole region, So, and there's all that kind of conversation across the country. Can we take, Mr. Speaker, this public information? Can public health be taken so seriously? If you look at public health departments in the counties and public health in national government, Mr. Speaker, it's a small department there, and yet public health departments, and as Professor Ongeri will educate us further, are more important because they work towards prevention. But we are focusing so much, Mr. Speaker, on the treatment instead of working on the prevention. What are we doing about sewage, Mr. Speaker? What are we doing about vegetables that are being harvested from sewages in Nairobi and sold in our markets? The meat, Mr. Speaker, that the other day I want to really praise the journalist Dennis Okari, Mr. Speaker, who covered the issue of the meat and which triggered action. But then that action will just take place in about 2-3 weeks. When you remove the cameras, we go back to our normal behavior of putting the wrong preservatives in preserving food and so forth. This information, Mr. Speaker, needs to be put in the public. And therefore, this bill, Mr. Speaker, is fantastic. But I will be proposing to the chair to the move of this, and I think when you move a bill, you should sit here to take the proposal, Mr. Speaker, and so because, or designate someone to take the proposal from members.
Order, members. Order.
Speaker.
Order.
But because there is Hansard anyway, I'll say this for the Hansard. Mr. Speaker, it is important to have, what do you call, to create a mechanism for collecting information and a place where people can get public information on cancer that can be used, Mr. Speaker, to prevent it rather than just for purpose of treatment. I beg to support, Mr. Speaker, and say that, Mr. Speaker, we must stay course to deal with this matter because it is important to go to heaven. It's also important, Mr. Speaker, to make a little heaven down here.
Senator Matsayo.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, pia mimi nataka kuunga mkono hii hoja au bili ambayo inataka kufanya mageuzi katika sheria zetu zilizoko za ugonjwa wa saratani na vile unaweza kujipinga kutopatikana na hasara kama za ugonjwa wa saratani. Bwana Spika, tunajua hata sisi katika hili bunge letu la Senate, tokea tuingie hapa ndani mwaka wa 2017, tumewahi pia kupoteza seneta mmoja kwa ugonjwa aliposhikwa na ugonjwa wa saratani wa koo, ambaye ni ndugu yetu seneta wa Migori. Aliweza kupoteza maisha yake. Sisi tunasema ya kwamba ikiwa itawezekana, ingekuwa muhimu kwamba huu ugonjwa wa saratani kusisitiza zaidi kwamba serikali iweze kuchukua hatua, uweze kuwekewa kipaumbele na uangaliwe sana kama janga katika Kenya. Watu wanaofariki na ugonjwa wa saratani si wa Bomet ama si wa Marakwet ama si wa sehemu za Rift Valley, lakini watu wote katika Kenya, hata Kilifi, tunaona kwamba kuna wodi maalum kule katika Kilifi Referral Hospital. Kuna watu wako na ugonjwa wa saratani. Tunajiuliza maswali mengi. Ilikuwaje tokea tupate uhuru hakukuwa na huu ugonjwa wa saratani kama shetani alivyo hivi sasa ndani ya ugonjwa wa saratani katika Kenya? Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, mimi nataka kusema kwamba nataka nimshukuru ndugu yangu Dr. Ali kwa kuleta mageuzi katika sheria hiyo ya ugonjwa wa saratani na vile mtu anaweza kujikinga ili kuweza kuwafanya maisha ya Wakenya kuwa bora zaidi. Na haswa nikiangalia uzuri wa ile bill ni kwamba katika kila county ya Kenya itatakikana kuwa na ile mahali katikati ama cancer center ambayo itakuwa katika hospitali, na ya kwamba kila mtu ambaye ana haja ya kuangaliwa kama na huo ugonjwa atapata hiyo nafasi. Hilo nafikiria ni jambo bora na ni lazima tulisisitizie, tuliwekee mkazo zaidi ili iwezekane kuwa katika yale mahospitali yetu yote katika Kenya mzima katika kaunti 47. Bwana Spika, Wakenya wengi wamepoteza pesa nyingi kuchukua wapendwa wao. Watu wameuza manyumba, wameuza mifugo, wameuza ila zao zote, hata majumba pale wanapoketi na vitu vyote vya ndani ya nyumba wameweza kuuza ili kuona babake, mamake, shangazi yake, nyanyake, ndugu yake ameweza kupona na huu ugonjwa wa saratani, lakini haikuwezekana, wamefariki. Sababu nzuri ni kama hii ya dadangu Laboso. Amepata tabu sana. Amekwenda hospitali Ulaya. Pesa nyingi zimetumika. Tukiangalia vile ndugu yetu Ken Okoth aliweza kutumia pesa nyingi sana kujitibu ule ugonjwa, lakini haikuwezekana. Kwa hiyo tunasema ni lazima sisi sote kama Wakenya liwe ni jukumu letu kuona ya kwamba tumeangamiza huu ugonjwa wa saratani, kupitisha hii sheria ambayo inaleta mageuzi mazuri ya kila Mkenya aweze kufikia hospitali ili kuweza kutibiwa na ugonjwa wake wa saratani. La mwisho, Bwana Spika, ungeniruhusu pia mimi niweze kutoa rambirambi zangu kwa familia na jamii ya wapendwa wao wa mbunge mheshimiwa wa Kibra ambaye alikuwa rafiki yangu. Mimi urafiki wetu ulikuja baada ya kugeuziana kofia ya kwamba yangu ilikuwa inamtosha na yake ilikuwa hayanitosha mimi. Kwa hiyo tulikuwa katika zile harakati za siasa, lakini Mwenyezi Mungu ana sababu zake. Alikuwa kijana, miaka 41 ni kijana sana. Aliyoyafanya ni mengi, alisaidia watu wake. Lakini yaliyotokea ni kwamba sisi sote tulikuwa tunampenda Ken na sote tulikuwa tunampenda yule dada yetu Joyce Laboso, lakini Mwenyezi Mungu anazo sababu zake. Na ikiwa sababu za hawa watu wawili ni kuona ya kwamba Wakenya wote watakaobaki kuwa hai wanaweza kupona, basi tuseme ya kwamba wao wametangulia. Na ikiwa wametangulia kwa sababu yetu, ili kuona ya kwamba vifo vyao vimeokoa Wakenya wote ambao watapatikana na ugonjwa wa saratani. Ikiwa hii bill itapita na ikiwa pia vile serikali itatia mkazo kuona ya kwamba ugonjwa huu wa saratani hatua imechukuliwa na umekuwa declared na umetangazwa kuwa janga katika serikali yetu ya Kenya, ili Wakenya wote wafahamu na tuipige vita vya kutosha katika ugonjwa huu wa saratani, kuona ya kwamba tumeuangamiza kabisa. Nashukuru Bwana Spika. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. Senator Professor Samongeri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to ventilate my views on this issue of cancer. First of all, I want to convey my condolences to the family of late Joyce Laboso, the singular honor of being very close to her late parents, Mzee Laboso and Mama Sarah. And we used to be together and have meals together, and I saw them grow up. It was a rude shock yesterday to witness and show and hear about her untimely death because of cancer. Equally the same way, I want to pass my condolences to the late Ken Okoth for such an untimely death, again due to cancer. The dominant factor here, when I was in the medical school teaching Senator Ali, I used to tell them that one of the causes of cancer is old age. This narrative has changed dramatically. That age is no longer a factor, because we are seeing many young people in the tender ages developing cancer. And as he rightly mentioned during the presentation, cancer now stands out as number 3 of one of the major causes of death. Or if you look at the prevalence level, cancer stands out prominently as one of the areas that we need to pay attention as a nation. And therefore, while supporting this bill there are certain areas that I think we now need to place emphasis correctly and appropriately. What is this animal called cancer? This cancer is caused by carcinogens, what we call carcinogenic agents, things that cause cancer to happen in the body. You know, your body is normal cells that continue working under normal circumstances. When it maintains a normal environment, a normal milieu, a normal pH, the body functions very well at the optimal body fluids level. But when there is a change in the characteristics of the cell or of the membrane, it doesn't matter whether that cell is in the breast or whether that cell is in the prostate or whether that cell is in the uterus or in the ovary or whether that cell is in the intestine, colon, or the stomach or in the lungs or for that matter in the brain. When that cell characteristics, the value of it is lost. The normal characteristics are lost. In other words, the cells in the other body are not able to recognize that as self. And then you have what you call a cancer process, where cells start proliferating abnormally, they grow very fast, very in a controllable manner, and therefore they cause disease and obviously the kind of death that we are seeing here today. And therefore, there are agents that trigger this mechanism. And I wanted to just mention one or two things. This could be chemical, some of these pollutants that we see around us here. So many chemicals that are now coming to the market, particularly in the agricultural sector, in our own houses, in fumigation, in our meat preservatives, particularly the other day, the metabisulfides. These are full of nitrites and therefore are positive, causative agents of cancer. And I think we should be able to understand that it's only by preventing these things that are around us that we can be able to prevent the incidence and the prevalence of cancer to a level where it has reached here in this country. Could be molecular, like those who are working in tobacco farms, those who may be exposed to tobacco leaves on the skin, or those who are chewing tobacco. This will be able to affect either the tongue or the lung or the throat. Some could also be, as I mentioned, infections, viral, and of course there are very few number of causes that are genetic, inherited from one family to the other. Now, one of the things Senator Alia would have expected to see is that there should be, yes, I agree that there should be a representation of people in this cancer family, whatever board there is. Yes, I agree that the county governments now must wake up and be able to create cancer centers. But I would have liked a greater emphasis, which you brought much later in the bill, on prevention. Because prevention has a potential, in fact, of curtailing the incidences and prevalences of cancer to the extent we are seeing it here today, Mr. Speaker. And I better say this because it's important that we appreciate and understand that some of the gases that we are working, now these days we are working in mines. We are mining coal, we are mining some substances to enrich ourselves. Least we know that some of these are potential agents for causing cancer. There was a time when the roofing was by asbestos iron sheets, and yet you drink water from these roofs which are been created by, which have been covered by asbestos. That's a potential way of getting cancer in our body. So where is my movement to be? So, Mr. Speaker, we will need to look at the environment and look at the agents that cause some of these cancer problems. And in the environment, we have the gases. Some of the gases are very innocuous gases. They may appear to be odorless, but they cause problems, particularly in areas where you have a lot of these other minerals that form the radioactive substances. I think lithium and many other elements that are able to fluoresce. These elements can be able to cause odorless non-aqueous gas, that when you inhale, you feel that you are okay, but you are inhaling poison. And that causes cancer. And I think we should now look at our environment. What are we doing about it? Look at the pollution level in this country. And we are complaining about the causes of cancer. This pollution level is as a result of so many chemical fumigations that are going on at the dumping sites, the garbages that are fermenting and fermenting all over the place. They're emitting gases which are not good gases for us to breathe. And therefore, we should look at our environmental concerns, the environment that we live in our own home surroundings, in our own cities, in our own towns. How do we approve the plans? The congestion that we see, both in buses, in markets, these are potential areas where you can be able to get this cancer. Occupational problems. We have issues like the chemicals, those who are working in chemical industries, those who are working in hospitals, they are potentially exposed to radioactive substances. Those who are working in asbestos farms, they are potentially exposed to those substances. Then, of course, I want to come to lifestyles. And I think I heard Senator Murkomen saying, what advice can we get? Our lifestyle has got to change dramatically. The consumption of sugar in this country is a potentially dangerous element towards this onset of cancer in this country. And I think we must accept it. It is a delicacy. We eat sweets. We give them to our children. We encourage Coca-Colas, all the ales full of sugars, and that's potentially one way of either getting diabetes, and diabetes predisposes. Some of these cells are destroyed, and therefore they become not recognizable by their own body cells. There is what we call autoimmune system that sets in, and therefore makes those cells to become unrecognizable, and therefore the normal cells will tend to attack and then create unnecessary proliferation of abnormal cells that cause cancer. So we need to look at these elements. We also need to look at the meats that we eat. Some of the preservatives, the other day the health workers had bounced on city markets on where there are butcheries. I mean, a classical example. And Kenyans over the weekends are feasting on these meats all over the place. What amount of chemical ingestion they're taking, and yet we're saying cancer is now all over the place. We should now look at the causative elements that cause these cancers so we can deal with it more squarely and more straight. The foods we eat, they contain a lot of nitrites, other substances that are not important. The carbon, well, I should have gone scientific way, but let me make it simple. Things that contain lots and lots of carbon chains. Those are potential foods that will cause cancer in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, my contribution in this area would be the move of the motion, Dr. Ali, and I have no reason to say he was very well trained, and I had the opportunity to train him, that now we should shift our emphasis to preventive rather than the curative measure. Yes, for those who have the disease, those who have the problem, we will be able to treat them at these centers that we've established. But let us also encourage Kenyans to have a normal habit of going for early checkups, because simple things like obesity are other causative factors of cancer. We need not run away from what we see are glaring causes of cancer. We need to tell our people the lifestyle that we enjoy, that we need to limit those lifestyles. The foodstuffs we take, we need to limit the foodstuffs we take. We don't drink enough water, clean water. I don't mean polluted water, because some of this polluted water are some of these substances like chemicals and other areas like radon gas, which comes from these other gases, which will be able to be potential agents for causing cancer. And therefore, we now need to look at water that we drink. We now need to look at simple foods that we take at our homes, in restaurants, and how they are prepared. We need to look at simple things like the air we breathe. Is it a clean air? And you will have noticed these days,
When in Nairobi, you're a sick person. You move, Mr. Speaker, to Meru, you feel well, and you feel as if some new energy has come to you. And it's because of the change of atmosphere, change of oxygen. The oxygen saturation level are much higher than we find here in Nairobi. If I looked at the oxygen saturation level in Nairobi, they will not be 97, 98%. They were probably in the area of 92, 93, 94%. That's why when you see us walking here, we are panting for air, because the air is potentially polluted, and we must accept that. And you can see that. In China, for instance, when you go to Peking or these cities, you see a lot of smoke on the air. That's pollutant. Those are pollutants. That's why the element of cancer is fairly high in those places. But they have known how to manage these cases. So I'm saying this. Once cancer sets in, the rate of growth of cancer is so rapid that you extend from stage 1 to stage 2, which is manageable. But the time you got stage 3, stage 4, you are leading at a level where it's unmanageable. And now we are asking questions. Do some of the therapies available to us today, are they effective, or they are actually aiding towards accelerating death? The chemotherapy we give, these drugs are extremely powerful. They are toxic, they are powerful, they make the body very weak, and therefore they also denude the cells that are able to act as good cells to swallow up the bad cells. So what do you find? You find that instead of improving, that there is also a remedy. Why don't we try simple remedies in the foodstuffs that are available? Let's look at the diet that we take. I used to tell people that one of the major causes of HIV/AIDS was because of the level of micronutrients that we ingested in the body. If they were low, then the level of immunity, the index of immunity went down, and there was likely to be that you will have HIV/AIDS once the virus gets in the body. But once you have a robust, good health, you may not be able to get to that level indeed. So what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, is that there is now an opportunity through this bill, and I thank the move of this bill. There's now a real opportunity to be able to get our county governments, because health is a fully devolved function. And therefore, we must be able to embolden and be able to say quite categorically, even we as senators who are oversighting the governors, that one area we would like to see greater investments is in the area of health. It should attract the 15% of the annual budget of the county, in accordance to the budget declaration. Number 2, health should also be able now to look at the environmental health, the public health element as a major element, and nutrition as a major element in preventing diseases, not necessarily cancer alone, but as a major wall against some of these diseases that we are seeing here today. And number 2, that if we get patients who have cancer at any stage, we shall now make it a regular habit. Our health workers must be trained at the dispensary level, at the health center level, at the level 2, level 3, level 4 level, to be able to do simple screens that will detect cancer in the early stage. Because once you detect it at stage 1, stage 2, that's a manageable condition. By the time it's in stage 3, stage 4, then you go into unmanageable situations. Then you go to high polluted treatment like chemotherapy, you go to radiation therapy, radiotherapy, all these manner of things. All those add up to just weakening the body, and it's a miserable life. It's not a life that you want to live. You find a lot of pain, you feel a lot of pain rather, and it's a miserable life. So I would rather change the emphasis, Mr. Speaker, from one of curative treatment to one of preventive, because you have a much larger population that you can catch at the early stage before they go to the end stage. And if they're in the end stage, we have a duty as professionals to be able to treat those in a very adequate way by improving their diets, by improving their conditions of living, by easing their pain, and by also giving them palliative management so that they can live a comfortable life before they die. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute.
Thank you. Senator Olekina.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you. I rise to make my contributions to the amendments of Prevention and Control, the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill 2019. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I sat here, I listened to the distinguished senator from Kisii talking about pain. And today my submissions are going to be completely unorthodox, because I think some of the problems that we cause ourselves in this country is where we try to stay away from what we were brought up doing and adopting new technologies and new practices. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a boy, young boy growing up, I used to, every day, I would consume something called seketek in Maasai, which are traditional herbs. And whenever we are sick, we would grind the herbs. I don't know what their scientific name is called, but we'd grind them and mix with milk and drink. And in most cases, when you are sick, you'd be able to get better. Mr. Speaker, sir, there's a very good friend of ours nowadays called Google. And I would challenge every member in this house to spend some time and look at some of the things which are considered evil in this society or uncouth. One in particular is medical marijuana. Mr. Speaker, sir, when you look at countries in the West, some countries in the US, or some states in the US, countries in Europe, have now accepted that not a lot of things are known about marijuana. Mr. Speaker, sir, in this country, we have made sure that when you're caught with marijuana, which is known scientifically as something that it's a herb that can be used to reduce pain. When the distinguished senator from Kisii was talking about pain, if you take a minute and look at Google, you'll find that a lot of people in a lot of states in the US are using medical marijuana to reduce the pain, which is associated to the treatment of cancer. I think it's about time. And I would like to request the sponsor of this bill to think about incorporating a few things, which in this country, depending on which side you fall in religiously, you might consider them to be evil. To think about looking and maybe incorporating an element where this country can start doing more research on medical marijuana. There are people who have given testimonies that once they are in pain, they control it with marijuana. Mr. Speaker, sir, I've visited farms in the United States where they produce marijuana, and most of their clients are people who have been diagnosed with cancer. And their testimonies. So I think it is about time that we start really going away from the norm and looking at ways that we can be able to help. The other senators who spoke earlier on, Mr. Speaker, sir, were expressing their condolences to the two good leaders that we've lost, spoke about the challenges that we face in this country, where when they go and see and look at this issue of chemotherapy or cancer as it is, they look at it as if it is really an enterprise. The distinguished senator from Makueni gave a statement about how a doctor cured many people using traditional herbs away from marijuana, but he's afraid of coming out and saying, this is really what we need to do, because it's a business enterprise. When I was sitting here, Mr. Speaker, sir, I was listening to the distinguished senator from Kilifi telling me how when he went to visit our late brother senator, former senator from Migori, how he saw the way the drugs had consumed his body from a person who was about 180 pounds to a person who ended up dying when he was about 60 pounds. We really need to think beyond just accepting all these things. When you go, Mr. Speaker, sir, to our farms in the traditional areas or rural areas, you'll find a lot of chemicals being used, either to preserve food. Something which I consider completely evil is where people are trying to preserve milk, and they use the same chemicals which are used to preserve bodies so that they can be able to preserve them. And they are just selling them. They are selling the milk. They keep it for days. Then you ask yourself, who is killing who? We are killing ourselves, Mr. Speaker, sir. This country, we as leaders, have completely forgotten our roles as people who are supposed to be representing people and supporting entities that lower standards. The number of fertilizers, chemicals which are imported into this country depend mostly, Mr. Speaker, sir, on how much they can, get in profit, not on standards. The carcinogenics that the distinguished senator from Kisii spoke about. These things that cause, no one really look into it. One of them, Mr. Speaker, sir, which is very dangerous and we need to think about it, and this is the opportunity, Dr. Ali, for us to be able to now amend this law and try to look at the whole broad picture, or rather the entire spectrum, on everything, including the furniture that we use in our homes. Mr. Speaker, sir, there are formaldehydes which are found in plywoods. These are chemicals which are used to fix plywoods. So you go into a nice home, you see a beautiful piece of furniture, it is made, and all these chemicals have been put there to make it look neat. But it does cause cancer. Mr. Speaker, sir, when you talk about all these common carcinogenics that the distinguished senator was talking about, you'll be surprised to hear that some of them even include potato crisps, or even when we make food, and maybe if it is the food which are preserved, or even bread, Mr. Speaker, sir, if you go and you toast it, and it is completely brown, and you eat it, it may end up causing all this. So I think what we have an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, sir, now to try and raise standards of things which are imported into this country, chemicals which are used to preserve. One of them, Mr. Speaker, sir, which our people are completely applying into the ones that you use to preserve the maize, Mr. Speaker, sir, in those traditional or even just storage. Once you pour the chemicals to preserve, to try and kill the insects, they're only supposed to last there for 3 months. But after 3 months, Mr. Speaker, sir, instead of us taking the maize outside and aerating, you take the maize, you add more of that substance for preserving, and then you take it and you grind it and you continue consuming. So a lot of our people, Mr. Speaker, sir, are dying because of negligence. During the campaigns, Mr. Speaker, sir, I went to a place called Mburbutia in Loita, in Narok South. And I heard that the killer there, every single day, you'll hear a home where somebody has died of cancer. Someone has died of cancer. You'll hear that someone says, I just got a small, what do you call it? Cut, and it has never healed. And when you think about it, Mr. Speaker, sir, the kind of treatment that these people get, or the kind of food that they are exposed to buy, no clean water, the food comes, it stays on the road for 3 or 4 days, they end up consuming it. Really, it's about time, Mr. Speaker, sir, that if we really care about our population as Kenyans, we should not be looking at our people dying. You'd rather even make a decision and say, I'm not going to subject my relative to go through this chemotherapy. We should just allow the life machines to be removed for those who can afford. Those who cannot afford, Mr. Speaker, sir, will go into a hospital, they are given medicine, they continue just taking the medicine. Let us explore. There's nothing evil in us looking at medical marijuana if it can ease the pain. There's nothing evil in us saying, let us now put so much money into this universal healthcare, but looks into herbs. These herbs. There's nothing wrong, Mr. Speaker, sir, in us talking to our citizens and asking them to go back organic. Mr. Speaker, sir, the bananas that come from your county, maybe Kirinyaga or the Rakanithi, when they are brought to Nairobi, they are green. And overnight, they have ripened up and you can now go and eat them. He has something to say that can help put into this bill so that we just don't invest on technology. Because what we are doing, once we invest so much in technology, in all those machines, we are just machines having work rather than preventing it. We can't allow that to continue, Mr. Speaker, sir. This is a country that we care about. And if God has been able to bless us, put us into this house, give us good health care that can be able to take care of us, then it's about time that we take care about those people who cannot afford. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you.
Thank you. Senator Abshiro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this bill, and as I do this, I'd like to join my colleagues in grieving for our colleagues, Honorable Ken Okoth, and my sister, Honorable Joyce Laboso, the governor of Bomet County, who have succumbed to cancer in the last few days. Mr. Speaker, in addition to them, there are 27,000 Kenyans every year who die from cancer. And I also rise to grieve for them as well. And perhaps, hopefully, through grieving for our colleagues who have been our friends, we will also remember that every year, 40 million Kenyans have new incidents of cancer, and 27 million Kenyans die of the disease every year, including, and I know most of us have been affected by cancer. And so as we grieve and mourn our colleagues, Ken and Governor Laboso, we should also remember to honor them and honor the lives of the other Kenyans who have succumbed to this disease. For Honorable Ken and Governor Laboso, I would say that Honorable Ken Okoth is a good friend of mine. When I came to this parliament, somebody pulled me aside and said to me, look for Honorable Ken Okoth and work with him on human rights issues. And so in the confusion, I thought he was in this house. So I went around looking, and then I said, but where is he today? Then they said to me, no, he's in the National Assembly. And lucky I did meet him a few weeks later at the Human Rights Caucus. And from there, we did discuss working on different issues concerning human rights, concerning the rights of people to a good health, to a good living condition, especially in informal sectors, especially around the time that there were demolitions in his constituency. So the promise I make to my friend is that I will continue the fight for the rights of the less privileged, as promised and as discussed. For Governor Laboso, I also got to know her during the re-election, or is it the repeat election for presidential candidates in our country in 2017. And she was, in typical form, the leader coordinating our efforts for the different groups going to campaign for the president. And at that point, I was asked to do the budgets for a few groups, and that's how I came to know her. She's a woman of excellence. She's a woman that really we looked up to. She was very courageous, of course, and therefore we're very proud of her. And I know a lot of women who are home today have got courage to face up to giants like, Honorable Isaac Ruto, who we know for a fact is not a pushover of a politician, but she stood up to him and gave us and trailed the blaze and really made sure that the path was cleared for other women that did perhaps not have courage. As Winston Churchill says, perhaps courage is rightly esteemed as the most important quality of a human being because it assures all other qualities. She had courage. I mourn her, but I celebrate her. And Mr. Speaker, public service or leadership constitutes some sort of kinship with other leaders, and so the sadness I feel is one that is not just for the loss of a colleague, but the loss of a friend, the loss of family. And so for both of them, I say, rest in peace, my friends, and that the journey you've started, the fight you began, the rest of us will continue. But to the rest of the 27,000 Kenyans, I mourn with them, I honor their lives. I know their lives are also as rich in family and in accomplishments as our colleagues were, but also we honor them as well, not forgetting that they are our kin, our fellow citizens as well. Mr. Speaker, going to the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill, I'd like to congratulate my brother, the Senator for Wajir, Dr. Ali, for bringing this amendment. First of all, this is a very timely, not only because, as Kenyans we're dying of cancer, but also because this bill aligns, the prevention and control of cancer to counties, because the old bill just read as though we didn't have devolution. So congratulations, Senator Ali, for ensuring that you take our mandate as Senate and Article 96 very seriously and make sure that the laws of this country do acknowledge the existence of devolution and the important role that devolution plays. But Mr. Speaker, I know our senior Senator for Kisii has spoken so much about some of the things that I had listed, so I'm going to skip those. But I'll look at it from the perspective of our broken regulatory system. I know he spoke about carcinogenic agents all over. And I know my colleague from Narok, my friend Senator Olekina, spoke about all the different preservatives and formalin and all these things that are being used, and that we should do something. I think if there's one thing we must do is to fix our broken regulatory systems. Our poisons board, or what do we call them, our pharmaceutical and poisons board, what are they doing? Who is holding them accountable? And if this House must do that, let's hold them accountable, because 80% of the drugs we use, and sometimes we wonder why don't we get better, are actually fakes. 80% of, and so are all the other things, from pesticides that we use in our agricultural sector, to the femicides, to even the dips that we use in the pastoral areas. Who is regulating what? So our regulatory system is so broken that we don't even know. It doesn't even matter your economic status. It doesn't even matter your social status. We don't even know what, we are not sure. Even this water we're drinking is actually okay for consumption. So this country is actually treading on really, really dangerous grounds. And if there's one thing we must do, I don't know if this bill can lend itself to that, Senator Ali, but if we could find a way of making sure that the regulatory system is also looked at, so that then it becomes part of the preventive measures that we're talking about, that the distinguished senior senator has talked about, so that then we look at prevention and that we prioritize prevention over the curative aspects. I know in this country we have prioritized things that involve buying things, perhaps, because the quick procurement issues and the percentages, perhaps, and the corrupt the corruption that is possible and the opportunity for corruption that's possible is what is making us prioritize these kinds of things that perhaps wouldn't even help us. And I hope the cancer centers that you propose in this bill, Mr. Speaker, is going to prioritize prevention over curative as well. Because if we look at, by the time from what we've learned today and from what we know, by the time you've been diagnosed with cancer, of course there's opportunity if you've been caught at the early stages, but by and large, as we've seen, not even the most endowed and the people with the best medical cover are immune from the eventuality of death from cancer. Mr. Speaker, again, our health ministry, I looked quickly at the strategies in place for cancer or for disease at large. And each one of the strategies is about control of disease. Not one is prioritizing prevention, control of disease. And in fact, even the name is a misnomer. It's called, for instance, the cancer one is called the Cancer Control Strategy 2017-2022. And when you look at it, the priority is getting chemotherapy machines and radiotherapy machines and CT scans and all sorts of things. What is this obsession we have with buying stuff? So that then, is it that is part of that corruption where we want to get a cut and we move on? Not knowing that really these machines may not even be useful and they have questionable use and usefulness. So, Mr. Speaker, as I stand here, and mourn the many Kenyans, and including our colleagues, and as I said, all of us have been affected. My sister, Kamu Jilo Kivuvani, died of cancer at a very young age, in her 30s. You know, we can name, everybody here can talk of family members and friends who have succumbed to this. So this is not just anymore about them, it's about us. So we need to look at prevention. But for me, if there's one thing this House can do, even if not in this bill, look at our regulatory system, our poisons board, our KEBS. What is happening there? What are we doing with these things? Mr. Speaker, again, our colleagues have talked about research. Again, perhaps this is something we should also focus on, especially with research into certain traditional, traditional ways of controlling and traditional lifestyles, perhaps, that don't have risk factors. Mr. Speaker, as they said, the cancer is the third leading cause of mortality in Kenya, which is 7% of annual deaths in Kenya. We're talking about all this, gloom and doom situation, but what we need to look at is prevention, and I don't want to belabor it because we've been told that that is the way to go, and I don't want to belabor it, but I want to congratulate my brother, Senator for Wajir, Dr. Ali, for this, because it has created a conversation, but we must go beyond conversation to some actionable initiatives that we can actually measure in the life of this parliament as we go forward. And if we do that, I think this House will have served well. I'm happy to note that, I'm happy to support this bill for its alignment to the Constitution, its alignment to devolution, but we need to really make sure that it goes where we need it, the pushing service delivery to the front lines of where our people live and work. But then, what kind of services are those? And I don't think it's those machines that are being thrown at counties. It must go beyond those machines to really things that we can touch, tangible things we can measure, and make sure that the lives of our Kenyan citizens, the lives of our colleagues that we've stood here today to honor, and the memories of and the lives we've celebrated of them don't go in vain. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you. Senator Chiragai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. I want from the onset to, on behalf of the people of Nandi, my family and myself, to pass our deepest condolences to the people of Kibra for the untimely demise of their MP, Honorable Ken Okoth, who showed resilience and was one of the cancer survivors, not survivors really, but people who fought cancer bravely. And our heart goes to the family, friends, and relatives. And what he did to the people of Kibra is, of course, unmatched. For the shortest 7 years, he was a member of parliament. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, sir, I also pass our condolences to the family, friends and relatives, and the great people of Bomet County for the death of their beloved governor, Dr. Joyce Laboso, who passed on yesterday, or rather passed away. We want to convey our condolences and wish the family well. Dr. Joyce Laboso, Governor Joyce Laboso, was one of the pioneer women governors in this republic. She has shown that women don't need to sit back and be given. They can fight it out and get elected as either members of parliament, as governors. And I think that should be the inspiration for many women and girls and ladies across this country, that you can fight it out in a political arena and win it. Dr. Laboso had a way of disarming, a demeanor that was disarming. She was always charming. She was always friendly. And we pray, God, that may her soul rest in peace. And we continue to pray for the family. Nandi and Bomet have close ties. Of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, you know we come from the same region. And interestingly, the findings by National Cancer Institute shows that Rift Valley, more so Bomet and other areas, the killer disease of throat cancer has been leading, according to the recent statistics that were being given the other day by the National Cancer Institute. And they are attributing it to, in fact, they are saying throat cancer. I don't want to use the other name, Mr. Speaker, because I can't really pronounce very well, but in Rift Valley and northeastern Kenya. And they are blaming our favorite drink, which is mursik, or called fermented milk, which, Mr. Speaker, you know mursik is one of the biggest energizer. That is why you see Eliud Kipchoge chasing the wind in London like nobody's business, because of the energizer called the mursik. But I've seen the National Cancer Institute have blamed the mursik. It has also blamed hot tea being taken with, of course, your people will be the biggest losers in this. If this has to be condemned, the famous, but it's escaping my mind, hot tea being taken with your commercial, which I have seen when the current CS was trying to ensure that it is exported to Somalia. And they are saying about another alcohol and tobacco. So it is now, Mr. Speaker, sir, very interesting. Because now fermented milk is not only adored as a food, but it has culture significance. So we want also the National Cancer Institute to tell us our beloved energizer by the name mursik, how does it come about to be a precursor for causing cancer of the throat? Those are some of the questions we need to be told. Mr. Speaker,
what is it, Senator Chiloyako? Are you on a point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to interrupt my friend, but out of concern for our sports personalities, when the able senator for Nandi says that Murusik assists people in breaking records, isn't he endangering the athletes, risking that they be banned for taking a substance that is performance enhancing? And I'm really concerned. Is he in order to make remarks that might threaten the future of our athletes, that they take some milk that makes or enhances their performance, Mr. Speaker?
Senator for Nandi, you know, the Senator for Migori is asking you whether you are saying that mursik is equivalent to some of the banned substances under the anti-doping legislation. Because that would be prejudicial to the athletes, isn't it?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm being talked to ADAC, Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya. Mursik has not been listed as one of the banned substances, and even by the World Doping Agencies. Mursik is just a fermented milk, just food. And it has been found, for where I come from, that's why I've said where I come from, is not only used as food, but it also used cultural purposes. For example, when we welcome you, and I know that the future for you is luminous, if you go and get a bigger seat, when we bring Mursik to your event, it means the wazes and the spirits have endorsed and ensured that you sit very well in that seat.
The question from the Senator from Migori is whether your statement was that what makes the athletes win is Mursik.
No, sir, it is not.
And if so,
it's just food.
It's just food.
Yes.
So anybody who takes Mursik, whether they are from Jamaica or from the other corner of the world, will break the record, according to you.
Yes. No, in fact, you know, apart from high altitude, there are so many factors. I can assist Migori Senator. Apparently, it doesn't come from where the legends of the track are made. I would want to say it is not only.
Order.
It is not only.
Senator Faria, you're on a point of order? No.
I just wanted to give point of information to Senator from Migori, Senator Ochilo Yako.
But he's not on the mic.
No,
But you can inform the House.
Yeah, I am informing the House that not only will it, I mean, it is true that it gives energy and...
What?
Milk.
Yes. Which one? The one of Senator Charagai?
Mursik or Ititu or whatever else it's called in our language.
Yes. Yes.
And that is a very good marketing strategy for our milk. So just to inform you, Senator, there is no chemical that is illegal in that milk. Thank you.
Very well. Senator Charagai, please proceed.
So, of course, in the spirit of brotherhood and my friendship with Senator of Migori, I'll invite him one of these fine days to the Source of Champions to see how legends are made. And they run the world. I can assure you for that. Let me proceed, and that is those are some of the questions that Kenyans would be asking, Mr. Speaker, sir. You saw the other day the NTV through Dennis Okari, and the House applauded him for the red alert. Those are some of the preservatives. Members, I wouldn't want to belabor the point, but what I'm just saying is that let's also enhance the capacity of National Cancer Institute. Because when they find some of this food, like the ones I have highlighted, like Mira, if today people, one of the interestingly, Mr. Speaker, and you should be very keen for this because it can change the fortunes of your people or your region, is that it says taking hot tea with Mira is one of the causing or precursor of cancer. It means people can run away from buying Mira and we have losses. Can we have the capacity? And you know, especially in Northeastern
What is it, Senator Ali?
Honorable Senator from Nandi, in order to call Mira food. Is Mira food?
Is Mira food, Senator for Nandi? The last time I checked, it was a crop. It was a crop under the Crops Act, which was passed by this House in the last Parliament. So that matter is legislatively settled.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Paul, for that slip of the tongue. But what I wanted to say is that we need the National Cancer Institute needs to do, or if they don't have capacity, Mr. Speaker, and I like the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill 2019 by my brother, Senator Dr. Ali, is that we need also to give capacity to National Cancer Institute to have more ability, to have more resources, so that by the time they are declaring, taking hot tea with Mira, for example, how does it cause cancer? And those are some of the things. I like the way women have fought cancer in this country, especially on breast awareness. It should be the national, in the year 2000, Mr. Speaker, sir, when some of us were now finishing crawling and starting to walk, His Excellency the President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi declared HIV and AIDS a national disaster. We are calling upon His Excellency, our beloved President, which we love him wholeheartedly, to come out and declare the national disaster to be the cancer. I don't know why Senator Mutula Kalonzo Jr., Mr. Speaker, is
Neither
excited.
does the Speaker know what is this declaration of love about. Can you proceed? And
no, I'm almost concluding,
yes,
Mr. Speaker.
please, because we need to make progress with a lot of interest.
Yes.
And time is short.
No, I just wanted to, Mr. Speaker, I'm making a very critical point that the President, which we believe in, should declare cancer a national disaster so that we can put more focus, more energy, and even agree with the Council of Governors, Mr. Speaker. Sir. I have seen Senator Dr. Ali has given us at clause number 22A that county government should be part of the process of being screening centers, counseling centers, how to palliative care. You know, when somebody is under palliative care, Mr. Speaker, sir, you need support system of the community and even the family members. How do we ensure we provide for the welfare? Because, Mr. Speaker, sir, in my county, for example, the other day, I went and visited a man and we did a fundraiser in Simbi, and that person later passed on because of lack of palliative care. In some place in Nandi, from a place called Kipkorior, I know you might be knowing Nandi very well, is that there is a prevalence of a specific cancer by the name throat cancer. Those are some of the challenges. Mr. Speaker, sir, the fourth point that I want to bring is that we need to agree on the way forward of GMOs. I am aware that there have been clamor either to go GMO or not. As a country, we must make a decision. Like when you go to Western countries, Mr. Speaker, there are foods that are called, this is organic food, this is GMOs. As a country, what way should we agree? Should we put into legislative? And I think Senator Dr. Ali, if the National Cancer Institute or even the ISIPE in Kasarani should come up with proper mechanisms on how to assist us in knowing which way to go, especially on the GMOs. Mr. Speaker, sir, my 50th point is on late diagnosis, because I have seen every presentation that we see, Mr. Speaker, sir, everybody says, you know, cancer was known at the stage 4, it was too late. Is this a problem of a systemic problem, or is it that our hospital centers, be it Kakamega Referral Hospital, be it Kapsabet County Referral Hospital, does it mean that our hospitals do not have capacity to detect and diagnose the cancer at an early stage that can be cured, Mr. Speaker, sir? Mr. Speaker, sir, I think this issue must and be relooked at. And I've seen the county should be involved in training. I want to call, as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I call my colleagues to agree with this amendment, is that we need to call upon the Cabinet Secretary in charge of health, Madam Cecily Kariuki. We have not seen any policy that has been generated by the Ministry of Health, which, Mr. Speaker, sir, the counties only control 3 billion. 96 billion on the fourth schedule, which the national government has been given for policy alone. The national government has more money. So what is the ministry through the CS Cecily Kariuki doing to ensure that they come with policy, Mr. Speaker, sir, on how they can guide the country? We are having a conversation about cancer. I saw yesterday in national television, even in the local dialects, people are discussing about cancer, but the ministry should be giving guidance to the Kenyans by saying this is the direction we'll to take, and I think that is the leadership. They should be working with Parliament, Mr. Speaker, sir, by assisting us in coming up with a way forward in moving and ensuring we go far, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, with those many remarks, I thank you, and thank you for your indulgence. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Shionga, be brief.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'll be very brief. Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand to support the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill 2019 brought about by Senator Ali. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to start by condoning with my colleagues, especially putting my condolences to the family of the late Okoth and Laboso. Mr. Speaker, sir, these are two great leaders who had an opportunity and true to their word they were dedicated to their work, and they were public servants whom we were expecting a lot to them, especially when serving this country. My condolences to their family, friends, and their relatives. When it comes to Laboso, I looked at her like a woman leader. I admired all that she did in the shortest time I had known her in the political world. And I'll miss a friend, I'll miss a leader, and I'll miss a companion. When it comes to Okoth, Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand here because Okoth has been my political party member, and we shared a lot despite the sickness that he had triggered. So I want to say that on 26th and the 29th of this month has been 2 days that have been the dark days in our lives, especially to our leaders that we were expecting a lot. May the Lord Almighty God rest their soul in eternal peace. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to go straight away to this bill. And I want to support the proposed amendments by adding that raising public awareness for cancer is very important. This therefore will enable us to visit, or our members to visit, health facilities at the earliest opportunities so far, because it is not only the prominent personalities that are affected by this disease, but rather everyone is exposed and everyone is at risk of conducting or having cancer. It is true that cancer treatment is expensive, Mr. Speaker, sir. The care of the palliative care treatment, time taken, is expensive too. It is the highest time Kenya, through the Ministry of Education, needs to take its preventive measures at the first score in preventing this particular condition. Mr. Speaker, sir, capacity building, especially with our healthcare workers in this field, especially when it comes to how they can take care of these patients and how to detect, as my colleagues have said, it's very important. We are talking about a condition that is brought about by so many factors when it comes to healthcare. Through probably importation of goods that are artificial, through prevention of our foodstuffs, and even climatical change. All these are factors that are contributing towards cancer problem in our bodies. And it is the highest time Kenya needs to change its parameters on how it can fight cancer, how it can prevent cancer, and how it can take care of those already who are affected. And Mr. Speaker, sir, as you look, we are losing so many Kenyans. We are losing so many Kenyans on Kenya. And just pronouncing or saying that cancer is, it should be declared as a national disaster is not only enough. But we need to look at even how many resources are going there, putting into consideration that healthcare or health services have been devolved. How much are we going to give, despite us purchasing very important, very relevant equipment? How much are we going to put into capacity building? How much are we going to put into equipment that are going to detect the most current cancers in this world or in this country of ours? It is therefore my appeal that the Senate, when this bill has been brought in this format, we work around making sure that this bill has been adopted to fast track what is all that is needed to go into this bill so that we can save Kenyans, because it's a time bomb that we are sitting on as Kenyans, especially talking about people passing or dying on cancer and not doing much that is needed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I support.
Very well. Senator Chiloyako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to make remarks regarding this very important topic. Mr. Speaker, allow me to congratulate my brother, Dr. Ali, for remembering the sick and also being concerned about the state of our health in this nation. Dr. Ali, as was indicated by his teacher, Senator Ongeri, is a good person. I've served in this parliament with him, and I can testify to his goodness, and that goodness is manifested in his desire to have legislation that handles cancer. Mr. Speaker, this piece of legislation is important because we hitherto did not have legislation that had aligned the attention cancer should have with the devolved nature of our governance structure. So I want to say that this proposition that counties get involved as key players in trying to control, prevent, and handle the threat of cancer is a proposition that must be supported because the Constitution, as we made it in 2013, envisaged that health will be carried out in counties, and that in counties resources must be put so that we attend to it. Mr. Speaker, I know that my colleagues, including myself, we have paid our tribute and sent our condolences to the families of both the late Joyce Laboso and the late Ken Okoth. But we may be forgetting that just this month, we also lost Joe Kadenge. Joe Kadenge, as we all knew him, was a great player. He was also lost through cancer, which means that if we were really to look at statistics of the people we lose through cancer, the list would be endless. Cancer seems to be what Chinua Achebe was talking about. Chinua Achebe said that when trouble knocks at your door, and you say that you have no seat, it says that you should not trouble yourself. It has come with its own seat. So cancer, as a trouble, has visited our country with its own seat, and it's seated everywhere. It is seated at the high table, it is seated at the middle table, and it's seated in all those tables. And we all must get alarmed, because if we do not get alarmed, I am sure that it will exterminate all of us. Cancer, as a disease, will of course kill those it has attacked. But more so, it will wipe away all your savings, all your resources, and leave in its wake both physical pain of loss of a loved one, but the pain of losing all the resources that you probably worked for the whole of your life. And if we do not deal with it, I think it's the direct ticket to poverty. If you think that you have enough resources and that you are able to look after yourself and family, wait until cancer invites itself into your family and gets a seat. You will go to London, you will go to India, you will go everywhere, and at the end of it all, it will only exit the family or yourself or your body once it has exhausted all the resources that you had accumulated. So this is a serious issue. And as we talk about prominent personalities we have lost through cancer, it's also important to remember that we stand for the voiceless, we stand for the humble people. I am absolutely sure that in Kibra alone, if you were to take a census of those who are suffering from cancer now and who do not have access to treatment, the number would be countless. If you were to go to Bomet, the number would be countless. If you were to go to Makueni, where Senator Mutula ably represents, the number would be countless. And I do not want to mention Migori. I suspect that most of my people in Migori even visit witch doctors and other forms of doctors because treatment is not available. So, Mr. Speaker, this proposition that we make it an obligation in our counties to provide for these services and to take care of our people is welcome, and it's a good one. It is also important in this proposed amendment as had been proposed by Dr. Ali, that there be mandatory statistic taking. It is important we understand the magnitude of this onslaught, the extent it has ravaged our people, the spread, so that we are able, from a planning perspective, to allocate sufficient resources to deal with it. I hear colleagues talking about declaring it a national disaster. If you declare it a national disaster and you do not have statistics as to its prevalence and as to its spread, then, Mr. Speaker, it would be very difficult from a planning standpoint to know how much to set aside and with what intensity to deal with the extent to which it has spread. So, Mr. Speaker, it is welcome in this proposed amendment to have statistics, to have data, and those data should be available so that those who plan and those who finance know what is to prioritize and the extent to which this disease has come. Mr. Speaker, it is painful that it is everywhere, and I'm sure even those who have agreed to talk in public about their suffering, those are just a few in this house. There are many in this house, many of us who suffer in silence. We suffer in silence because we do not want many people to see how vulnerable we are. We speak to God in private, we speak to our friends, we never say we have cancer. But really, if we were to get the notes that God has about the prayers we send to God, truly cancer is a disaster. It's not that just a national disaster, it's a universal disaster. And countries that have dealt with the magnitude of this problem have addressed the issue of cost of treatment. Countries have also addressed the issue of awareness, which this amendment seeks to intensify. And countries have also addressed the issue of research, which this amendment seeks to do. So I am very pleased that this House is discussing this matter. When I read social media, which I was doing yesterday and the day before yesterday, I noticed that young Kenyans were posting out there that senators and their staff, governors and their staff will be composing beautiful messages of condolences. Can't they just take time and legislate or do something? So I'm glad, Dr. Ali, you have come forward and you have availed an avenue through which we can interrogate this matter. We can do something using our mandate. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support, and I hope all of us will be supporting.
Thank you. Senator Wako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
If you can save a few more minutes for another speaker, it will be welcome.
For allowing me to add my voice to this very important bill, the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill 2019, by Senator Dr. Ali, my brother, and a good friend who is a very good person. Mr. Speaker,
Order, Senator Junior, Senator Mtula Kalonzo Junior. Are you disputing the goodness of the Senator for Wajir? It has been stated repeatedly by his teacher, Professor Sam Ongeri, in your absence, repeated by many senators, and I think what Senator Wako is doing is just to reaffirm an established issue. Do you have issues with the goodness of the Senator for Wajir?
Mr. Speaker, sorry, maybe I missed the memo, but I thought the compliments were in excessive, but it's okay.
Maybe he's excessively
what
good.
What is the measure? Yeah. What Mr. Speaker, what has he used to measure the excessiveness?
Proceed, Senator Wako.
And why should he just comment when I have said that?
Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious discussion, and I congratulate Senator Dr. Ali for bringing this, because this is something that is affecting the entire nation. It has robbed us, family members, breadwinners, and also robbed our nation, great leaders. And especially for the last 1-2 months, we have mourned the death of great leaders in our nation, not forgetting that even in our counties, we have lost so many people because of cancer. In my own county, within 1 month, we have lost many people, and in one village where I was born, we have lost 2 people, and one elder who has always been a leader, who has always guided the villagers. So it is something that is affecting the entire nation, and as leaders, it is high time for us to see how best we can be able to come up with solutions that can help us. Mr. Speaker, in my county where cancer has taken many people, we have been told that the cause of cancer is as a result of a lot of consumption from meat, because we live on meat. We know we slaughter goats, cows, and we eat a lot of meat, and we enjoy doing that. Then our milk has now been, we've been told that even milk contributes a lot to that. And to my surprise, even mursik, in my place we call it ititu, which is enjoyed by everyone. And I took a cup of ititu even last night. So I'm still in shock that that can even cause cancer, because we have always been proudly taking that. So, Mr. Speaker, when we talk of cancer, it is something that is so close to us, and it has taken so many people, great leaders, and our own people. So the bill, I support this bill, because the proposed amendment is to amend the Cancer Prevention and Control Act to provide for additional function of county governments in prevention and treatment of cancer. This clearly shows that we will all own the problem, and the county government shall be responsible for prevention, treatment, rehabilitation, and control. Mr. Speaker, if all the counties will do this, then I'm sure even those who are suffering from cancer will be encouraged, will be, we will give them hope even as they suffer. Mr. Speaker, the bill seeks to establish the county center in every county, the county cancer centers in every county. This will make the government to invest money so that we can take care of our citizens. And it is clear, or from the records, we can see that we lose 33 Kenyans every year to cancer. And early screening, I understand, is the best thing that we can do. But the cost of that, Mr. Speaker, is something that we cannot even imagine of. When we talk of early screening and proper screening, it is only those who have money can do this. But imagine of the thousands and thousands of people in the villages who have no access to these facilities, who have no transport to go to hospitals and do this, who have even no idea of what they are suffering from. So doing this will help our people so that they can get the services closer to them and they can be screened. I also suggest that free screening be done as we wait for the centers to be developed in every county, because time is not on our side. Many Kenyans are suffering. Many of us could be working. Many Kenyans could be working, carrying cancer. So it is good for us to suggest that the government can allow people who are willing to do the screening to have it done freely. That can then help Kenyans to know their status and see how best they can be supported. Annually, we have seen that this country, we record 47,887 new cases. Mr. Speaker, this is quite alarming. And maybe today, if that is done, then maybe the number has increased. So it is just in order for us to encourage the citizens to go for screening and also see how best they can be supported. Mr. Speaker, Part 3A of the bill talks of prevention and control. And in particular, because of time, and you mentioned, I will not go to the details, but Part D talks of capacity building for the professionals. Most of the time, we put the wrong people in places that need attention. It is my request that in the bill, we will suggest that only the people who are qualified for that particular job can be employed and capacity building be done from time to time. Again, why I support this is under G, Part 3G, the bill is suggesting that we do the counseling. Counseling, Mr. Speaker, not only to the people who have cancers, but even to the caregivers. As we have all known, the people who take care of the patients suffer a lot, and this has made Kenya, even as Kenyans, even more